You're listening to the Electronic Media Collective Podcast Network. Yeah, it's a mouthful. For more great shows like the one you're about to enjoy, visit electronicmediacollective.com. And now, our feature presentation.
This is Randy, and in the future, people will wonder, much like we wonder now, where Easter eggs and jack-o'-lanterns come from, what a turkey has to do with Black November.
In the future, Captain America will be replaced by Scrooge McDuck as the national icon. Thus, the American dream will be to have your own money bin.
All right, welcome to the Grawlix Podcast. We have more people here. We have more people.
Yes.
Melanie's here from the beginning.
Woohoo! For once, or maybe twice.
And we also have Holly. Hello.
Whee!
That's the best way to start out. Yes. How was your Thanksgivings?
It was good.
They're Thanksgiving-y.
We had families. We had foods. We had eatings.
We had games.
Yeah, we actually played a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Did you?
A bit. Yeah,
A bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
We
had to leave. We had to leave, and so the adventure. You had to put a pin in the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Is this an ongoing adventure, or is it like a special holiday adventure?
I think Jake had it kind of put together. A couple. I don't know how long he's had it put together, but he's had it kind of waiting in the wings.
Tanner's been playing, though, I think.
Has he? Oh.
I think that's what it was.
Tanner is our nephew.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. It's the first time I've played in a couple of years.
Probably, yeah.
Ooh.
That's been a while.
Nice.
Yeah, what are the things that modify the whats? You want me to look where?
What on earth is that?
Hand me that player's handbook. Again.
Cure what wounds?
This episode's going to go up fairly close to unedited. That's just a warning to the listener. Normally I get to do all kinds of chops on it, but this one's going to be a quick turnaround, so there'll be much shenanigans.
And it's also unusual because we're all in the same room.
Oh yeah. I can't believe I didn't even mention that yet. This is what makes it a special. This is the special. The holiday special.
Yeah. Like Charlie Brown everything.
No more.
Because we're thankful.
Yeah, it's because we're thankful. Because this is December. Wait, what? This is the December episode. Did we actually say no to anything in the month of November?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Me neither.
We said yes to things, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But it all worked out in the end. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to be an optimist and say that it all worked out.
But yeah, this is the first episode we recorded in person. We've got everybody here in person. No voiceatron.
No,
is that what you called it? Voiceatron?
Yeah, I think it was the Voiceatrons.
Voiceatrons?
Yeah.
Yeah, when calling over the internet over the Voiceatron.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes.
That came up in Grawlix Nights.
Yes, that was with Sarah. Yeah. Which since then, she went on to successfully fund.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Excellent.
Mm-hmm. And she got her and hit
a stretch goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was nervous for her. I'd send her. I'm sure it wasn't helping, but I would shoot her a message once in a while and be like, "You must be pulling your hair out right now." And I'm like, I'm not even involved, and I'm nervous.
She's like, well, I wasn't, but now I have the idea, so thanks.
Yeah. But that was cool. I was glad to see that succeeded.
Yes.
I did another interview that's on the YouTube channel with Frank Mula.
Yes, that was a good interview too.
He had a lot of interesting stuff to say, but it was interesting talking to him because he's also a co-founder. They're doing the indie publisher thing, so it's kind of cool to hear him talk about that. Soon, I think we're going to be pushing the Grawlix Nights through the regular podcast feed, so it won't just be a YouTube thing.
Yay.
We were talking about that.
People, you can get your nights as well as your days.
Yep.
Wait, what? That makes sense?
To be able to download them, too, and since it's...
Yeah, they do get I mean, like, we tried to keep those short, but we don't know the meaning of the word.
No. No, well, the first short one was 20 minutes, and the last one was about an hour long, so...
Yeah.
But particularly if we're going to be doing creator interviews and putting them out through there, it'd be nice to be able to send them through the podcast feed, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of in-house stuff. And the Comics Podcast Network.
Yeah,
Proud
we're
members.
Proud members,
that.
excellent.
Yeah?
Yeah, so...
Very nice.
comicspodcast.com. You can listen to us and ignore everybody else that's on there.
Well, and there's a lot of really awesome podcasts.
There's just a lot.
You should ignore them and listen to us.
Yeah. Unless you've ran through our catalog, which wouldn't be too hard.
Well, and when you get done with us, then, I mean, I suppose if we haven't covered everything.
Yeah. Awkwardly, but amusingly making our way through in-house news and stuff. Today, see, I'm trying to keep it on track.
See, that's the thing, is like, actually seeing us now, it's like, you can't help but see the smirk across it. And you go, oh, man, yes, this is funny.
We're going to talk about Superman Red Sun. Mm-hmm. That's our pull list pick. And then we're going to talk about, finally, some Doctor Who.
Yeah.
What?
We've waited this long to talk about season 8.
I think there was one episode where we started, like, I brought it up a little bit.
I think we had to talk about Listen because we could not talk about it.
And then we had to cut that short because it would have been a 4-hour podcast, and that doesn't do anybody any good.
Crumple the paper. See how professional we are? We make lists.
So, next episode's pull list pick, the one that won, I believe, was, and I'm not sure of how to go about this one, we had it listed as 2000 AD Judge Dredd.
Ooh.
So some Judge Dredd, but that doesn't really narrow it down to a specific... I guess it's 2000 AD, so
that's the original,
aiming for some original.
Yeah, the original British Judge Dredd.
So we'll have to search up. I'm interested because I don't think I've ever read any Judge Dredd, and I'm very curious about it.
But yeah, I was going to say my only familiarity with it is
with the movie.
And I've never even seen the movie, just Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah. That movie.
Oh no!
I've seen both Judge Dredd movies, but other than that.
Wait,
that wasn't a Judge Dredd? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say
the new one.
The new one
really pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the new RoboCop.
That was pretty awesome too.
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen the new one.
It's worth watching.
Really?
Yeah. We watched it the same night that we watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and somehow they were good. Like book it,
yeah. It wasn't like sometimes you watch movies like that back to back, and you're like, "What did I just do to my brain?
Yeah.
Like, why did I just do that to my brain?" And with this, it was like, "Oh," but I wept all the way through The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. So, but RoboCop definitely has a pretty good morality play. It's pretty easy to pick up.
And somehow they updated it without losing the feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah, because that's
But I guess the RoboCop movies are a little bit more dystopian, though. I think.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Than the reboot or the remake or whatever you want to call it.
So we'll nail that down. We'll nail Judge Dredd and figure out what to read. But we'll be reading something Judge Dredd for January's episode. It's weird to cut through the banter we usually do, but it's also like I'm not sure how to do the banter. In person, it's strange.
Yeah, it's a different beast. It's a different beast.
And we kind of had a little bit of the banter before we even recorded, so...
And you've got 4 introverts in a room, too.
I know.
I'm a centrovert, actually. I run right in the middle, which also contributes to my particular brand of crazy. But I understand introversion, so it's like, we're all like...
Yes.
Doesn't hurt that every time there's like a really good introvert article, I'm like, well, you should probably read this because then you'll understand why I'm crazy.
And I did.
But you talk to people just fine. Yeah, when I know them and I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that.
Yeah, even when I know people and I'm comfortable with them, it's still hard to talk to people sometimes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah.
And this guy...
Yeah. Whatever. It's anything. It's going anywhere and doing anything
Yeah,
with
you
anybody.
do.
I'm like,
You always freak
I handled
out.
this all right because last time was so. I mean, it was a good time, but like driving up here, I was like, and I pushed through it, and it wasn't bad, but it was definitely awkward. But it made this visit not so bad because I'm like, well, we'll have like I've done it before, you know,
Sure.
and I like hanging out with you guys, and we'll have like kind of a game plan. So,
Yeah.
Game plans are good.
when we started that. So we're talking about, assuming I'm leaving all this in, we were talking about what ended up being called This Podcast is Haunted. We recorded kind of like a Halloween special. When we started that, and I really had no game plan, and everybody's sitting here, and like, so, what are we doing? And I'm like, talking about ghosts.
You didn't actually make that noise. So you can actually listen to that episode on the Electronic Media Collective website.
Yeah. electronicmediacollective.com, which is a very long title, but it works.
Yeah. It is what it is.
I didn't know where else to put that, and I was like, well, I don't want to start another blog just to like host this thing, so it'll go in the podcast network thing. All right, Superman, Red Sun. That's what we're going to talk about. Maybe.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Written by Mark Millar.
Millar. Yep. Same guy that writes the Kick-Ass stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's a Grawlix. We've covered.
We've had this discussion before.
It's a title, so we don't Grawlix that.
Yeah. Pencils by Dave Johnson and Killian Plunkett. Inks by Andrew Robinson and Walden Wong, which is possibly the most fun name to ever say.
Walden Wong.
Walden Wong. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's a good name.
Colors by Paul Mounts. And this was published originally in 3 issues, a 3-issue miniseries in 2003. That's my notes.
And it's in Elseworlds.
Yes.
I think that they generally run about 3 issues long, but they wind up being a little bit longer issues, it seems like. Before we started recording, I mentioned that the other one that I was kind of getting this one mixed up with was one where Superman's parents survive Krypton's explosion. And it's the same kind of setup, 3 parts. Kind of nice for 3-act storytelling, I suppose. You just have a really condensed first, second, and third act.
Yeah, for sure. This one is pretty much Superman's capsule lands on Earth something like 12 hours. Basically, it would work out to 12 hours later than otherwise, than in the normal continuity, and ends up in is it Soviet Russia?
Yeah, like in the farmlands.
Yeah. And so that's the basic premise is, what if the Russians got Superman instead of the U.S.?
Right, yeah.
And trying to think of the story here. So he's raised by farmers.
Same.
Yeah, pretty much the same because he's raised by good people, but it's kind of more of a with the commune type. What is it called?
The collective farms and
yeah, with kind of those ideals. But he's still ends up basically at the beginning of the story, once we actually get to Superman proper, being basically the same kind of Superman. He's just over there. You're gonna wonder like random laughs and stuff.
Just so people know, my dogs are front and center tonight. So when they're up to shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
It's hard to encapsulate Red Sun in like a real brief thing.
It kind of is because there's
Well,
you've got the central concept.
What if
but then
Superman
the
were
story,
Russian? What if Soviet Russian, like communist Russia specifically.
yeah.
We have
But yeah,
I was about to say we have a Wookiee. It sounded like.
No, we have a Goggy. Sit. Yeah.
You say GOG, and all I can think of is Kingdom Come. So now I'm on a whole nother miniseries.
Hey, you're gonna get I'll back.
I'm so confused.
Yep.
What is this podcast called? In the future, I'll try to keep track of it.
I really, 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 really dig the colors.
When right off the bat, his costume has changed. It's not the primary colors anymore. It's more of a gray, gray and red,
and of course no S.
Yeah, no
like
S,
the big thing.
Hammer and sickle instead.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of crazy though, because wasn't that the blanket that he was wrapped in? The S symbol?
The S. I think it varies from origin to origin.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't really read a lot of Superman, so I don't know. But
plus, they're gonna take creative license to just kind of work with that image and the concept.
Right.
So yeah, you've got Russian Superman. Lex Luthor is also in it, but he's in the U.S. of course, because that isn't really changed by the fact that
and he kept his hair well into his 60s. That's crazy.
Yeah. He didn't lose his hair as early.
But didn't Superman make him lose his hair in some?
Oh yeah, that's the
off.
No.
And early take was that the reason Lex Luthor partially was so angry at Superman is because Superman is responsible for his hair loss. But they've kind of redacted that motivation a couple times.
Okay. He's a farmer in Russia, and then the government finds him.
Yes.
Well, he kind of comes to the government, doesn't he?
Maybe.
Wasn't it something to do with, something, it's been a while, but something like a feeding line kind of a situation, and some people weren't getting enough, and that was an issue for him.
Well, that's when he decides to become the president.
Oh, was that when that was?
After Stalin's death.
I'm mixing.
Oh yeah, because he sees his
sure,
like a childhood friend or
his Lana.
Yeah.
That was an interesting thing, is that some of the characters wind up being Russian along with Superman. Like Batman is Russian and Lana is Russian, but then Green Lantern is American and Lex is American. So,
well. Okay, that'll make it a little smoother. We're just going to kind of jump around in this because I don't have a good synopsis for the whole story, and you can't really, unless you go through the whole story.
And you don't really need a synopsis. It's Superman's Russian. Bam, there it is. Okay. That's the book.
And if you've read this, then you'll know exactly what we're talking about. And if you haven't, we'll definitely hit some spoilers because I've got to talk about, so we're just going to jump around about to things we remember and enjoyed.
The Bizarro was interesting.
Yeah.
I remember liking Bizarro quite a bit in this. And isn't he's Bizarro's
kind of tragic too, you know, he's kind of a hero in this, weirdly, yeah.
He almost plays out, I want to say he almost plays out, at the time anyway, a little bit more of a good guy than Superman at that time. I could be wrong.
Well, Superman wasn't particularly a bad guy at that point because he was kind of just his own. He was the ideal Soviet man, but he wasn't the president yet, so he wasn't in charge of everything. He genuinely was just helping people, kind of like Superman did in America. So at that point, it doesn't seem like there's that much difference at that point. Which I think a lot of Elseworlds kind of like to start that way, this world is a little different, but it's still essentially the same. And then you come to find out, oh, wait, you take that left turn, to use a Doctor Who reference, and it can change things dramatically.
And eventually it becomes basically the arms race, or the big power struggle becomes, suddenly Russia's got this weapon, and the weapon is Superman. They've got this. Of course, Superman doesn't look at it that way. He wants to help everybody out.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit where Lex comes in with his conflict with Superman. Of course, he's always got to have his conflict with Superman, but because I'm me, I want to talk about Batman.
Well, yeah. He's pretty rad in this too.
His headwear.
The hat.
I know the hat.
I like that they incorporated it, and I want to say that the trade has a pretty lengthy introduction written by, I think, Mark Millar.
Well, and this is the one I've got in front of me is an old one. So there's probably a more extensive introduction.
But I want to say the writer, even when they pitched the idea of incorporating, what would you even call that Russian-style winter hat?
It has a name, but I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, with the ear flaps and the big fuzzy part on the front. Mm-hmm. I want to say he was nervous about that, but eventually he was like, okay, that works. Yeah. But I think it's kind of fun. It is a little goofy, but it's fun.
Well, he'd have to change his outfit somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
Superman gets away with being skin tight because he's Superman.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like an aura about him.
Mm-hmm. The Batman origin, this kind of ties, well, I mean, it definitely ties back into the Superman story since it is a Superman story. Mm-hmm. But, so Superman's working with Stalin. And that's kind of an odd thing. I mean, Superman, Stalin's the leader of Superman's country at this point, so it's not odd from that perspective. But they make Stalin kind of seem like a nice guy.
Yeah, almost a father figure, yeah.
When he's really, history shows he's a pretty horrible person.
Sure, yeah, he did a lot of things. Yeah.
A lot of things.
Yeah. When they kind of touch on it, just kind of tertiary, like very briefly, they were like, well, all the things I've had to do.
But that kind of makes it work in that for it to work that Superman would work with him. Sure. Like he would have to come across to Superman as a fatherly figure, But anyway, so that makes, what's his name? The kind of the second hand.
Piotr?
Yeah, it makes him jealous. But anyway, I mentioned him because I like the twist on the Batman origin where he doesn't come from wealthy here. He comes from very poor family. Mm-hmm. And Peter, Russian Peter.
Yeah. Yes.
Is the one who kills Batman's parents in this.
Right, because he's the leader of the KGB.
Mm-hmm. And were they printing off, like, basically rebel propaganda?
I believe so.
I think that was the case. So that's where Batman comes in on this. And Batman's really, I mean, he's an anarchist in it.
Yeah.
He's blowing things up.
He's as much like the Joker as he's ever been.
Yeah. So
right down to the way he escapes sometimes. Like, when Superman is the president and they have that whole chase scene, and then he escapes them via use of a dummy that has this big smile on it, and I thought, oh my god, that's so Batman, the 1980s movie.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun twists on Batman. And of course there's also Wonder Woman, we got basically Russian Wonder Woman. I mean, it's Wonder Woman. But she kind of gets tied in with Superman, which I think at the time they weren't really doing in the regular comics.
Right.
Since the reboot, they do they have paired Superman and Wonder Woman up, I believe.
Yeah.
But we don't have the Superman Lois Lane dynamic. Instead, Lois Lane is hooked up with Lex Luthor.
Right.
In the U.S.
Although they do have that one moment where he's like, there's an obvious attraction, but he's like, she's married and, it wouldn't work kind of a thing.
Right.
So as an Elseworlds tale, there's a lot of fun twists on, I mean, that's where kind of a lot of the fun of an Elseworlds tale comes from, is taking the convention and then kind of flipping it around. And
when they did a really nice job of, even though he was now the Soviet ideal, they didn't make him like immediately evil, like I don't know, and maybe that's why this is such a fan favorite, of the Elseworlds. I mean, there's a lot of Elseworlds that people like, but this is one that you can kind of ask people about and they will have inevitably read it or heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a lot like the real world. Some of the most evil things is people who think they're right and they're doing good things.
Right.
But they're not. And then, because then you can do horrible things, but you feel so justified about it because it's for the good of,
You're only meant to do well.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that it takes them pointing out how much he is like a bad guy for him to realize that he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
At the end.
Things do not go well for Wonder Woman in this.
No.
I thought that was really interesting how they played that.
Yeah, if there's a thing to nitpick, it's maybe that she's not as strong the woman archetype as you're used to.
Yeah. No, yeah, she kind of dotes on Superman a little bit. Like she helps him forward his ideals almost to the detriment of her own, like what she becomes in the proper DCU. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen in this Elseworld story. Mm-hmm. So eventually Superman becomes president of, or well, whatever
what they call
title
it, president, I believe.
And then it kind of goes overboard, which is something particularly with Superman they visited on a lot in recent different DC books and stuff, but goes overboard and becomes the overbearing ruler to where, isn't he?
He starts lobotomizing people. Yeah, he starts
like mind control.
It becomes almost Brave New World kind of stuff, where if you're not with the ideal, then you're programmed to be with the ideal kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And he even has Brainiac as his lackey, at least for a while, which just as a rule is a bad idea. Hey, Brainiac, why don't you be my receptionist? That should end well.
Yeah.
I'm just flipping through. I'm just realizing I do not remember this book at all. I read it I think when it first came out.
We got the trade pretty much immediately after the buzz kind of hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be obvious to listeners, but we're kind of skimming through this one quickly because we haven't had a proper time to refresh ourselves on it. I thought we had a copy at the house, but we did not. So kind of a, maybe not a totally fair discussion on Superman Red Sun, but that's all right.
Well, and something I was like, as I'm flipping through, like I always notice things like how the boxes are constructed, how the colors used, and some of the artistic application of a lot of the pages. That's something that I tend to follow a lot. Mm-hmm. And with this, it was interesting too, like how some of like the word boxes are red and yellow, and
all of Superman's thoughts are kind of conveyed in the red and yellow of the Soviet flag.
And it's all, I mean, even the bright pages are dark.
Mm-hmm.
All of them. I mean, even the stuff that has really intense color has a lot of black in it as well. So, and a lot of really red tinged pages, of course. But
when then Lex kind of brings the fight to Superman eventually, like he's slowly building up,
Mm-hmm.
and you it's interesting because you start to see, like, under Superman's rule, the Soviet, that the Soviet state really flourishes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, when you have Superman making sure that it can flourish, it's going to, and it spreads worldwide, and it comes to the point where you've got Superman's Soviet state kind of running things, and then you've got, what was it, two, like Chile and America were the two that were kind of not on board.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really the only ones. And then yet they're kind of thrown into this kind of dystopian ruin where their economy is floundering. So
that
kind of flip-flopping. I mean, I don't want to claim knowledge of Russian history that I don't have, but there were times of obvious unrest, and didn't have the success that Superman could give them.
Yeah. Well, and some of the alternate history stuff is definitely some of the more interesting points of the story. With, I mean, obviously, since we're here in the U.S., with the U.S. stuff, because like there's things like JFK wasn't assassinated.
Yeah, Nixon was assassinated, so Nixon must have got elected initially, and then JFK has a longer run.
Mm-hmm. And then just seeing, America decline in it is very interesting.
And then, of course, it takes Lex Luthor. And Lex Luthor turns America around.
Super smart Lex Luthor. I mean, he always is, but like they really play, hammer that home. Where he's like learning a different language while playing chess with a computer and 10 other people.
He's not truly successul until he loses his hair.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the trade-off for Lex.
Yep.
That's his great character arc.
As his brain swells, his follicles fail.
Yep. That reminds me of one thing. Is like through the whole thing, I really question why Lois Lane sticks around at all. Maybe they touch on that, and I don't recall. But like, he's just totally neglectful.
Well,
of
there's
that.
There's that one point where she shows up for like the anniversary or something, and he's basically saying, "Well, no, we've got to talk to so and so because they found basically Green Lantern, the ship that crashed and whatnot." And so she has to, yet again, sacrifice, this farce of a marriage, the one night a year that they actually get together. And he just kind of informs her very matter-of-factly that their marriage is on hiatus for a time while he tries to figure out this Superman problem.
Marriage on hiatus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe we won't have the answers to this, but I was just flipping through it because I tried to reread the whole thing and got most of the way through. I'm on the last issue again. I read it, but it was probably back in the 90s or early 2000s. The Green Lantern dynamic. They eventually give the ring to Hal, and Hal figures out, they figure out the oath. And he's using the Phantom Zone as his staging area, which is kind of crazy. But then eventually he's got a whole army of Green Lanterns. How did he manage that? Does anyone remember that?
I don't recall.
I'm going to have to, So I'm going to finish that. But I have
totally forgotten that there was any Green Lantern stuff in it at all.
I did.
I don't recall that scene. That's definitely one of the areas that...
Weren't you saying something about there were other... the other Green Lanterns were...
Yeah, they in the Green Lantern Marine Corps, or whatever it is they had, there were other characters that have also been Green Lantern, what's it?
Guy Gardner? Is
he? Yeah.
He would be a Marine for sure. Kyle wouldn't, I wouldn't think, but maybe he would.
Yeah, I don't recall.
In an Elseworld, maybe.
Because there's been there's 4 of them typically.
There's John Stewart, Kyle Rayner, and Guy Gardner are the kind of non-Hal Jordan Green Lanterns.
And then there's non-Hal Jordan Green Lantern.
Well, and then there's a new one, and I kind of lost touch post New 52. When New 52 hit, I followed Green Lantern for a little while, but then they trapped Hal and Sinestro in a book, and I was like, okay, this is a good time to stop.
Just put that.
They closed the book on it.
Yeah.
Hello. Holly loves my puns as much as everyone else.
Oh, so not true.
The end? You want to talk about the end? Because some people I find, like the very end, the time loop aspect, I guess.
Oh, yes.
That's jumping right to the end.
Oh, yeah, yes. I almost forgot about this. Yes.
I love that. That's my favorite. I think, and some people have a beef with it.
Because, well, it's a huge spoiler. But yeah, so Lex becomes kind of triumphant in the end, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. And then you come to find, yes, that's right. Oh, man. I just broke through to old repressed memories of this.
Well, I guess I'll jump back a moment. Lex ends up kind of reining Superman in, and I really like how he does that too. Super simple. And he's like, I can bring Superman down with one sentence or whatever, and it's basically, I think it's, are you gonna put the whole world in a jar? Referencing his failure to be able to bring this, like Brainiac, I believe it would have had to been Brainiac, shrunk down the whole city like he does.
Stalingrad,
yeah, and he was never. He's
instead
like,
of the bottle city of
I swear someday I'll figure out how to write this, and that's Superman's failure because he never could. So then Lex basically just kind of plays on that weakness and is like, what are you gonna just, you can't shrink the whole world down or whatever. Right. And that reminds it, kind of humbles him and puts him back in his place. Mm-hmm. And Superman's like, oh, you're right. Maybe I'm a little out of control.
Yeah. Talking about this now, this might derail things though, so I don't know if I want to even say it. Okay, talking about this now, there's some serious parallels to the way that Civil War kind of resolves. Marvel's Civil War. Mm-hmm. And with that movie coming up in the far-flung future here, it's kind of a similar situation where, it's one thing that kind of brings the war to a halt. Mm-hmm. One thing that gives that moment of realization, and then all of a sudden, it's over.
I like that. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say, when you're talking about, a Superman story or whatever, to bring realistic into it. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how realistic it is, but I really like that idea of, the solution is just this super simple thing.
I like it a lot, especially because I don't really care for Superman in general because he's Superman. And I'm I don't want somebody who's invulnerable. Yes, Kryptonite, but
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kryptonite doesn't even really come into play, does it?
No, I'm just saying he's basically...
Which kind of ties into the time loop because...
Because it's not our Superman. It's not the Superman we're used to at all.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so he's, he's basically invulnerable, and that's boring to me. Mm-hmm. You gotta be... You're less super to me when you are super. If you're a regular guy doing incredible things, that I find that more impressive than, whatever Superman. But if you're invulnerable like that, nobody's gonna be able to stop you. They have to be able to reason with you, and that's why I like the way that it ended.
Yeah, because
the way they resolved it.
Lex wouldn't have been able to overpower him or overthrow him, but that's how you deal with somebody like that. Is if you can hit them emotionally, that's the only place you can injure them.
Get checkmate, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
But which Brainiac, not Brainiac, but Bizarro actually has over Superman.
I like Bizarro. I always like Bizarro, though. I like him in everything. He's cute.
Because wasn't that the thing that really insulted Lex was that Bizarro beat him in chess?
Did he?
I think that was the thing. He was like, I have to dedicate my life to ruining Superman because this horrible copy I made beat me in chess.
Oh, that's very interesting. I don't recall that. Yeah, huh. But yeah, Bizarro's good in this. Mm-hmm.
So you started talking about the time loop.
The time loop, yeah, that was that. I enjoyed the book. There's some stuff I really liked. I liked the Wonder Woman stuff, and the Batman stuff was cool, and pretty much everything we talked about.
So the whole thing.
In general, gloss over. Yeah, I like the whole thing.
So, Superman's better as a Russian.
But okay, that's not necessarily what I'm saying here. But that time loop end is really I don't know. Maybe it's just such a gimmicky thing too. But I really liked it. Boom.
Yeah.
I read it and I think I was the most excited just after finishing that bit. I was like, oh! Yeah. It's a good, for me.
I so badly want to spoil this, but this is probably the one thing in this whole book we shouldn't spoil.
Yeah, you think? Yeah, you're
probably
right.
Is. It probably
I mean, if they've read it, they know.
Spoiling it, though. I mean...
We did mention time loop. But...
We did mention time loop, but we didn't say how.
There's little specifics.
And that's the thing that's really... Yeah.
But that was good. Mm. I'm done with Superman. Anybody else got anything to say? I feel a little bad for kind of this is how we handled this month's poll list, but
Red son of a gun.
Yeah. But we got Doctor Who to talk about.
We gotta have priorities, time loops and all.
Yeah, exactly.
Wibbly wobbly.
Speaking of time loops,
as far as Superman, Superman's kind of he is a tough character to get right, and he's been around. He's the first superhero, as far as most people are concerned. Mm-hmm. So as far as that goes, this is one of my favorite Superman stories of all time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is one. I think one of the few Elseworlds that does get put on a lot of people's lists of favorite Superman or whatever. Yeah. A lot of times, when you got a list of favorite Superman or Batman or whatever, Not a lot of Elseworlds tales will creep up into those lists, but this is one of them that does find its way into a lot of people's lists.
The Red Sun Superman shows up, what was it? Before the New 52, they had the countdown. Mm-hmm. It was like, was it Infinite Crisis? Or Final Crisis? I don't know. It was either Infinite or Final Crisis, where they bring the multiverse back into play, which they like to do. Mm-hmm. I think in the future, they will be bringing the multiverse into play again, if they haven't already. And Red Sun Superman, they do this whole countdown. It's called Countdown Arena miniseries, where they have all of the different Elseworlds Supermans, and then they pit them against each other to find that one most dominant Superman or Batman or Green Lantern. And so that was kind of interesting. And I was always kind of bummed in the Superman issue because it felt like Red Sun Superman should have been able to like throw the smack down a little bit more than he did.
Really?
So I was kind of like, man, this is really a well you can't go back to too often. It's singularly special that it's in this story, I guess. Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong, but I have a suspicion they'll be using him again soon in this
multiverse.
Yeah.
It would be hard not to if you're going to bring the multiverse back into play.
It sounds like they're pulling from all kinds of alternate DC timelines, except for the current one. Is kind of how it sounds like.
Huh.
Lots of pre-Flashpoint, pre-New 52 stuff. Lots of Flashpoint characters. And
that's where they lost me too, and I like the Flash, but when it started ramping up to Flashpoint, I was like, I don't know. Mostly because I had just read Final Crisis not all that long ago before that, and I thought, another future, another dystopian, strangely altered future.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what they're doing right now.
Well, and you can say that with both Marvel and DC.
Because Marvel's doing another like Secret Wars type thing.
Yeah.
And Convergence is the exact same kind of thing, and they're both going to do it at the same time, roughly. Yeah.
Kind of like when they killed Batman and they killed Captain America, and then they brought them both back. It was like,
it's pretty weird.
What are you guys doing? Are you guys talking to each other?
Yeah.
Are you trying to one-up each other? I don't know.
But it'd be sweet if they wouldn't do it, and if they did, they couldn't keep it a secret this long. But it'd be sweet if they were planning some type of like weird crossover type thing.
Oh, like
between the big two,
mingling of the two of the multiverses of the two universes.
Oh man, well, and that's traditionally not gone well either.
No.
Oh, I think we've talked about.
We did talk about it a little bit because one couldn't concede defeat to the other, so you're not really going to have any interesting outcomes. I
think one of the best fights in that whole DC Marvel crossover was Cap versus Batman.
Yeah,
because it was pretty much a stalemate.
Yeah,
and Batman knew how to, nullify the super soldier stuff. So yeah, everything was plausible in that little encounter.
Oh, one more thing on that, along those lines before we move on. The Convergence thing. There's going to be a Swamp Thing issue because they're doing like the 40 different miniseries, 2-part miniseries. Swamp Thing written by Len Wein. I'm super excited for that because he...
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So that might be interesting. But anyway, we can move on.
All right.
Hey, Doctor Who?
Doctor Who.
Yep. Yeah, I just did that.
I don't want to do video podcasts, but man, there's some moments that you can't capture it. So. I might just have to leave that in, but it'll just be silence. Nobody will know what's going on. Yeah. But the look was good.
At least that's all you get. Every time we watch it, I swear. It's like the music starts and he's like, like drumming on my leg. I'm like, Jesus,
I do.
Calm down.
Because you really key into the music. Yeah.
Every time.
Excited, yeah, it's true.
Have you been tempted to find a copy of The Vault, the music that they put out?
Oh, no, yeah, I mean, it's crossed my mind, but I just haven't looked into it yet. Yeah. But yeah, I'm really interested to check it out. I seen some post where they released, I think, a limited edition, and then they ended up producing more, but it's the soundtrack or the score, but it's in this really groovy
TARDIS box thing.
TARDIS box,
Yeah,
a wooden TARDIS box. And I was like, oh, man, that is awesome.
Like, they did another really cool box set with, like, the Ninja Turtles, the animated series, where the box set is literally the turtle van.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And this has nothing to do with anything we were talking about, but we were talking earlier about watching comic book shows, and my favorite is the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, my favorite part of that one, the last one, is they had some, like,
That
part
you
where they were
watched.
interviewing.
We're still, like, on the last season.
Oh, yeah, we're not. We're behind. But they had they were interviewing the group, and they were like, you're on a desert island, and there's a box. What's in the box? And there's this girl, she's like, anything I want? And they're like, yeah, and she's like, TARDIS. And I'm like, that's like the perfect answer right there.
Yeah.
That should always be.
One should always
It's
be
the British girl.
It was the British
Yeah,
girl,
yeah,
of course.
yeah,
But
yeah. So how do we want to do this? Because if we go episode by episode, I mean, we could make that happen, but we'd have to go fast.
Do you think that's okay? I was gonna say, do you think that's too
We
much?
should at least start at the beginning. We should start with deep breath, because I know that doesn't necessarily hit your top 3.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. We can start on the first couple, and if it really stretches out, then we can kind of just talk about high points and stuff like that.
Sure.
But, so yeah, Doctor Who Series 8. Obviously, this is coming out before the Christmas special is ran, but otherwise, we haven't got to talk about any of the new episodes from Series 8. First off, one thing they did different this year that they haven't done the past couple of years is they took no breaks.
Yeah.
And that made it interesting. I mean,
Solid 13 episodes of Doctor Who.
I've always loved that. I prefer, I don't like we know there's going to be new episodes because it's mid-season sweeps, That's always agitated me. I'd rather have a massive mid-season break than to, is it going to be on? Is it not going to be on? I don't know what's going on. So I dig that kind of continuity.
Yeah, I liked that. I like that we didn't have to wait. Like, it didn't run a bunch and then we had to wait. But at the same time, about week 10, 11, you're like, oh, it's almost over. It's almost over, and we're going to have to wait till after the Christmas special, almost a year.
When did you guys have that lull? And we were like, oh, there's no more Doctor Who.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
It was kind of our routine because what we do is we get it on Amazon Instant. And so we get it the next day. So every Sunday morning, it was like Sunday morning cartoons kind of thing.
Yeah.
We'd get up and it'd be like, Doctor Who. Like, Holly'd be like, what do you want to do? And I'd be like, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who.
I'm making nachos.
Yeah, we're making breakfast nachos. And it was kind of it was like what watching it live would be like, but it was in the morning. And so it was kind of fun.
Yeah, we'd watch it later because I didn't get off work till a certain time. We'd watch it later Saturday nights. So we'd catch it Saturday night still, but we wouldn't watch it as it ran live. But yeah, that did become like this. There was one Saturday night I spaced it off. Otherwise, yeah, every Saturday night, they're like, oh, new Doctor Who tonight. So yeah, PCAP.
I'm curious, which one did you space?
It might have been.
If I had to guess, it would be Force.
It was somewhere around there. It was later in the series, so it was somewhere around there, like that or Flatline, which I think was the episode before. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think so.
You got your list?
I do have my list.
It's right here. I asked before I saw it in there. And I don't remember, the titles are not going to tell me everything that's going on, so if you're going to do it, talk about them, you need to tell me which one is which.
Well, we'll jump into Deep Breath, and that one might go a little longer just because
it was first.
Well, yeah, and it's PCAP.
And when it was feature length too.
Yeah,
it was the longest.
Deep Breath was the first episode. What did you guys think of it?
That was the one with the dinosaur.
You start off with the dinosaur. It's got
He's still cooking.
It's got the trio. What do they call them? Something gang.
Paternoster gang.
Yeah,
Paternoster.
There you go. Thank you.
Paternoster.
That's exactly
Paternoster
it.
gang.
And yeah,
I was glad to see them there. I'm glad it was kind of a nice bridge to have them there. You know, regardless of what your feelings might be of that gang, they do get overused. They did get overused towards the end of Matt Smith's run, but
Don't put it there.
it was kind of nice. It was kind of nice to see them kind of kick off the season, and then that's it. Like we didn't get any more of them, which you know, used in small doses. I like them.
Randall does not.
No, it makes sense, like you said, to kind of, and that plays into part of what annoys me about that episode. But it makes sense to use them to bridge from Smith's run, because they did show up in his run quite a bit. But that ties into the ridiculousness, I think, with Clara and her basically being what they feel the voice of a lot of like the fangirls and a lot of the fans would be, with trying to convince them, no, this guy, I mean, he's older, but he's all right. He's older, but he's all right. Like, there was a little bit too much of that, I think.
This whole season was kind of self-aware in that regard. And yeah, sometimes I really like meta stuff. It kind of like The Girl Who Loved Doctor Who when we did that review.
Oh, yeah.
And this season was the most self-aware it's ever been. And in some cases it was really fun and really funny. And in other cases it was like, okay, we don't need to talk about that in the show. You know, we have to deal with that on the internet forums.
Oh, God. He's liking me too much. I don't know what's going on.
Trying to boss you around.
Oh, I think. Okay. I thought
That's one of the reasons.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah, well, it's a dominance move. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I like him.
Go lay down.
Okay.
I wish people could see this, because it's just his face full of sass. Like,
It's
I
a
never used to
border
believe that
collie.
dogs could be sassy until I met him. And he was just like, he's basically, because f*** you, that's why.
You don't want me to hump you. I don't want you to help me. Come on.
And order is restored.
Or border is restored.
Wow, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. You had an epic one today where we were talking about some football player.
Oh,
Like,
no,
well, what
they
is
were
he?
talking about the referee, and this referee had, like, he was, like, super, like, massive, like, all muscles, and, like, and I thought referees, that was their job, to be a referee.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
His job was being lawyer, and they were like, well,
What kind of law does he practice? And I'm like, gun control? Yeah.
Yeah,
you know,
for guns,
you put your
yeah.
arms, you put your guns
God.
up, and it was just
That
like,
was
my whole
and
family.
I
like,
was searching for the pun, and she beat me to that one, and that was pitch perfect. I was like,
you can make Jesse
wow.
go, oh! Then, you know, it's okay.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, anyways.
That was one of my A-game puns. I mean, it was like, whoa.
But yeah. So, sorry, back to...
Oh.
And that's like Doctor Who.
I can't believe I
Referees
just stopped
with
talking
guns.
about Doctor Who to talk about football.
Oh, yeah.
Referees with guns.
Cow. When you say the guns, you gotta say cow.
Where did we leave off?
So I do like a lot of the meta stuff. They did do a lot of meta stuff this series. I just felt they went overboard. It made Clara feel, I mean, she didn't have a lot of character last season.
Sure. They gave her a character this season.
But it felt out of character for how she initially reacted
She went from
to
being
it.
a cipher, you know, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to give her a personality, and her personality doesn't jive with what we used to do. Yeah.
So that bugged me a little bit, but...
Well, like, this was one of the rougher... I mean, like, it's always... That's part of the thing with the regeneration. The regeneration is hard on the companion because it's hard on the viewer a little bit. It's an adjustment for everyone, and it just mirrors that in the show. So it was weird, though, because she was the impossible girl that literally injected herself into the timeline of the Doctor and had interacted just previously with the most incarnations of the Doctor since the 25th anniversary with the 5 Doctors. So it was like, I'm not buying that you don't get this.
And why would she be so concerned about the fact that he looks older when she's talked to the first Doctor, she's talked to the War Doctor, the 2 oldest, most haggard-looking doctors to that point. Like, they've had her speak to them both.
Yeah.
Like, they had her speak to the first Doctor. Like, this.
She was the voice of reason for the War Doctor.
Yeah. Like, this guy, like, I could see her being disappointed that he's not Matt Smith. I mean, I was about to say young, handsome, but Matt Smith's a little odd looking. But I don't know how the fangirls think of him. Like, I know he's like, they like him.
There's like a generation gap. It's almost like a Star Wars thing where you either like Ewoks or you don't like Ewoks. And
who doesn't like Ewoks? What? That's insane.
There are people who fall on the Empire Strikes Back line. Mm-hmm. It was really succinctly put in an episode of How I Met Your Mother, where if you're born at a certain point, you either do or don't like Ewoks.
Do you not like Ewoks?
I like Ewoks.
Okay.
I was a Jedi fan, but as an adult, I really do appreciate Empire. Like, I've come to realize Empire's greatness. Mm-hmm. But I do like Ewoks. And the haters can just stop because the rebellion would have failed without them. I'm just saying.
Laying it down.
Yeah, we wouldn't have a 7th movie. Just saying. And then we wouldn't have a funky lightsaber with a guard.
Yeah.
Which is going to be, I think it's going to be awesome. There's a bunch of haters out there for the new lightsaber. But
really?
Yeah, yes.
The first images I've seen of the trailer, the teaser, whatever they just released, were stills on Twitter of people. They took that image and then they'd like draw all these extra like lightsaber things all around.
Like the Swiss Army lightsaber kind of thing, and it's like, no, come on. It's a total. Like, I guess I'm kind of a sword geek, and this is totally spinning off into a direction it doesn't need to go. I'm kind of a sword geek, but like the guard makes all the difference. It changes the entirety of the sword play. So all of the lightsaber battle stuff that we've seen in the past that has been all one-handed sword play, this can totally shift how lightsaber battles act and look.
I don't think a lot of the people that criticize really thought about that and it hadn't occurred to me. But yeah, when you're fighting like that, and the lightsabers, when they hit each other, they stop each other. Like, it's like a solid object when they touch each other.
Yeah.
So like the hilt or whatever, the guard makes sense.
Yeah,
because you could use that to like
stop.
Yeah, but the thing that I thought about it immediately though is that you really don't want your hands to touch that.
Yeah.
Because your hands lock up against the hilt a lot of times, and in swordplay you put your hands on the hilt.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But
so
doesn't
it
have I think it still had the emitter. Like
it had a little bit of a.
So
it seemed like it had a little bit.
I don't think that your hand actually slides into the plasma. So nerdy. This is so nerdy.
It is.
You just said your hand slides into the plasma.
The plasma emitter. The emitter would stop it. So it's safe. It's safe for Jedis. Or
now, it's so nerdy.
At least Sith aren't bothered by this.
Wow.
Oh. And that's like Doctor Who, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Okay, I wonder how many like spin-offs or like veer-offs we can do, because we've done
several.
Yeah.
And then
first episode of Series 8
is like pizza and plasma sabers.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Because it's all pizza.
It is.
Oh, pizza.
I think we should discuss Capaldi because I think he's great.
Okay, yes.
Well, and that's what,
definitely my favorite thing of the whole series.
He made every episode, even the ones that were less than stellar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Super stellar.
And I've never taken to a regeneration this fast.
It was,
Ever.
I was... See, and I have a hard time... I was sold before I'd seen him.
He watched the thick of it, so he was all about...
I had a kind of an idea what we'd get. I didn't think we'd get as grumpy of a doctor. Or... Not that he's grumpy, but... kind of abrasive. I didn't think
They
they'd go...
kind of prepped us for it, so I was ready. I was ready for a third Doctor, but the thing is that he's even more abrasive than the third Doctor sometimes.
But I was ready for that kind of attitude, so
But like the
Except
third
some of the
Doctor
eyebrows.
straight up chews people out.
That's my
so.
favorite. As soon as the eyebrows thing happened, I was like, I love him. I always will.
Yeah. Like, I mean, they seriously set us up in the 50th anniversary when, I mean, you just get that one little snippet and you're like, oh, he's going to be cross.
And that was one of my favorite parts of the first episode, was when he's like really coming to terms with his new regeneration. And I think, like this will project into future seasons, but is he going to figure out who he stole his face from?
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting line. I'm kind of really glad I don't think they had to throw that in there.
Right.
Because they've done that before. They've had, which Doctors? They've appeared in the series.
Romana was the princess from the previous season.
Right.
And then Colin Baker was actually a guard in an episode. I think that Tom Baker did. So
they've done that kind of thing before. I don't think they had to acknowledge it, but I like that they did.
Yeah.
And
it sounds like it might even be a story element. Like,
yeah.
What am I trying to tell myself? What am I trying to remember?
Yeah, it wasn't even a throwaway line. They actually tied it into an interesting character point. You're like, whoa, like just extra character.
And this is kind of Moffat's MO, like this that might come back and mean something. The way that Moffat likes to do the long con or the long game.
Well, I mean, and I think that's what I enjoy the most about the series is how it is so self-referential and comes back to the stuff. I mean, but that's why I love the Stephen King universes too. It's like, because you're talking about an entire universe and you can pop something else in from somewhere else and be like, oh, that thing from the thing before. It's back and it's the thing.
And there was so many of those references throughout this season where you like right down to the ring that Capaldi wears, like threw me into a tizzy of, is that Hartnell's ring?
Yeah.
Did they bring back the signet? And maybe they did, maybe they didn't. They didn't really make a big deal of it. I'm making a bigger deal of it now than they've made of it in the show. I'm just like, there's a ring on his hand. I remember when he had a ring.
But it's like, hey, throw that on.
Wait, it might have been.
We don't have to draw.
It might have been Capaldi. It might have been.
Oh yeah. That's the cool thing too. Is you have a fanboy playing the Doctor.
A huge fanboy.
At last.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've caught any of like the extra interviews or anything, or like, are you from, what is it, the Graham Norton show or whatever?
Yeah.
Kind of British show?
Yeah.
There's some interesting clips of him on that show, and one of them is he pulls up some letters that were compiled into a. Did you see this?
The old fan club letters. Yeah.
So I love the fact that Capaldi's a huge fanboy from way back.
Did you see the Q&A that they did for the season 8 Blu-ray set? Where he it was pretty big news where they mentioned that he actually told his agent to turn down the audition for the 8th Doctor slot.
I did hear that. Yeah.
It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And yet, like, I'm so glad it worked out the way it did. Because I love Paul McGann. And he's so great as the 8th Doctor. And someone less patient might not have been. Because you audition for that role, you play that role, and then it doesn't get picked up. And you think, well, that's the end. And it could be that you could leave it at that. But instead, he went through an entire decade of being the Doctor, even though he wasn't. I mean, in a sense, he wasn't. He was the only Doctor we had. And he played that so well by continuing on with the Big Finish stuff.
Yeah, well, it made me think about it like, for Day of the Doctor, that, because that the War Doctor part was intended for Eccleston. And it just didn't work. It didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
So it made me think, like, why? I mean, I love John Hurt though too, so I can't. I'm not feeling bad about it by any stretch. But why couldn't McGann have just done it?
Oh yeah.
Why did we have to have his little mini episode where he?
Well, and he's so brilliant in that too. He stepped seamlessly into that part. Partly because he's been doing it, but I mean, like he didn't.
I think he would have had the chops to do it too. I mean, John Hurt was fantastic, And it definitely would have been different
And
with
he's
McGann.
played war stories.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul McGann, outside of Doctor Who, has done some brilliant war sagas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've always thought, bring back the Eighth Doctor. You could do a whole spin-off of what did the Eighth Doctor do leading up to the Time War.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of did that. They kind of filled in a little bit of the gap for us. But I've always thought that you could do a Time War Eighth Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
It would be easy.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the chops.
But yeah, you make a good point. It's interesting to fit a new Doctor in there as opposed to, so we can't get 9, why not just slide back to 8?
Yeah.
Because,
Well, Moffat kind of talked about that a little bit, where he said,
he?
"Yeah, he said he always thought that would be interesting if there was just this Doctor that none of them wanted to talk about."
Yeah.
Kind of
But
the
I
black
mean,
sheep
like,
of the
but he
family.
took fandom like into a tizzy. We're like, what do you mean now the numbers are
Yeah,
all
now
wrong?
the most pedantic and canonical fandom of all time, and you just slid one in there and said, "But no, 11's still 11."
Yeah,
But it's one of those things where it's kind of like, Moffat!
But I'm glad that they brought, like, the one thing that it did that I really liked, and I guess this kind of is 50th into Time of the Doctor.
Yeah, we're jumping back a little. That's all
Yeah.
right. That's all right.
Is that they reconciled Handy, you know, the Metacrisis Doctor, and the fact that that's regeneration. 10th Doctor got to use up a regeneration.
Yeah,
and that always kind of bugged me. I was like, that's a regeneration. I don't care if it's the same Doctor. He used one up. Yeah, because I'm that fan.
I had totally forgot about that. I hadn't thought about that. I don't know if it occurred to me watching that episode with that tenant, where he did use a regeneration.
Yeah, he used it just to stay, you know, and yet mess up Catherine Tate.
Dr. Donna.
Yeah.
The Dr. Donna.
So that's like Capaldi.
But hey, we veered and still stayed in territory, so we're getting better.
Yeah, we didn't leave Doctor Who this time.
There you go.
But some of the references and continuity, some of the very self-aware stuff, I'm looking at like a synopsis and talking about how Vostra said, well, here we go again. And that's a direct reference to Brigadier. He said that when the third became the fourth. So he said
well,
that.
and who has encountered more incarnations of the Doctor than Brigadier? Really, the Brigadier has
Clara.
only.
Yeah, that's
Just saying. I'm just
only in a
just
paradox
Yeah.
timeline that has been retconned.
It bugs me a
Has it
little
been
bit.
completely retconned?
Well, because now Trenzalore doesn't even like the dead TARDIS doesn't even exist, as far as I'm aware.
What?
So awkward. Yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, does that exist? That's the big question, is does Trenzalore and the dead TARDIS exist? Because he doesn't die there. Because the Time Lords intercede.
Yeah.
Spoilers for Time of the Doctor, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, if we're talking about season 8.
Yeah, big time spoilers.
Yeah.
So, episode 2?
Well, should we cap off episode 1 and say what we liked and didn't like?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because this is probably the most polarizing episode.
It really is.
For the 4 of us, at least.
I like the creepy,
Well, the clockwork.
Yeah.
They came back. Because that's supposed to be Girl in the Fireplace clockwork. Again, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they've been around for a lot longer than we ever knew.
Yeah. Yeah, I like them. I like the look, like the main guy, the effects that he
I
used
liked
was
the
really cool.
deep. I liked that they tried to do "Don't Blink" in a new way, kind of thing. Like
Hold your
breath,
breath.
deep breath. You
Yeah.
know, like that was kind of interesting.
except I hate that because I can't watch shows and not.
Well, you gotta hold your breath?
Yes, I do. I have to hold my breath. And it's the same when like people go swimming and stuff in movies. I have to hold my breath, and then I'm like, and then like, and
So you were holding your breath along with Clara.
yeah, and it makes it difficult to enjoy the show as much when I am about to pass out.
Yeah, that would do it.
I enjoyed Capaldi quite a bit. I liked his usual wackiness at the beginning when he's still kind of like in transition.
He played Matt Smith well.
Yeah, for sure.
In some cases, better than Matt Smith did.
That's bold.
Well, okay.
Jesse could take the heat for that one.
So my email is a false address.
But when they started to like, it was a little bit of a. That episode, they kind of like hint at a much darker Doctor, and that he is kind of a gruff Doctor. But they hint at a really dark Doctor. So I think a little bit. Sure. On the one hand, they've got with the whole Clara thing, like, no, it's okay. This Doctor will be fine. Don't worry, audience. Don't worry. But at the other side, they're like, he might have just killed this guy. Like
he might have pushed that guy out of the blimp.
They're really kind of jerking you around. But yeah, that scene where. The mention about, I've seen this face before, and that whole scene I thought was real fascinating with the homeless guy back there.
The attack eyebrows, and my eyebrows want to seed from my face, and yes.
Is that the one where he's also talking about like what's wrong with my voice?
Oh yeah, he's like, I'm Scottish. Oh, that's good. I can complain about things, which is really fun because I just did that review for Masters of Earth, which is all set in Scotland.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. It's interesting the thing with Clara and how she's struggling with him looking different. I had a tough time with that. Because like she's met all of them.
Yeah, that was my big.
Like, why is it so hard for you, sweetie? You were there when he stole the TARDIS.
Yeah,
or the TARDIS.
The only thing I can do to reconcile that in my brain is that all of this becomes a paradox.
Yeah, but
I keep coming back to that, but it's like because that dead TARDIS didn't happen. Like the name of the Doctor didn't happen.
I see your point. I see your point. If that didn't happen, then they were never there for her to jump
and so she kind of forgets, like things that are forgotten. Kind of like what they said at the end of the 50th. It's like, well, no, you won't remember this. War Doctor, you did all these good things and you won't remember any of it.
That's kind of an interesting point.
But the thing about that also helps me justify a little bit too is that Rose looked into the time vortex too. So she got to experience...
She looked into the Eye of Harmony, yeah.
Yeah, but she got to experience all of space and time, yeah?
Right.
Like she
but
she
didn't
through.
get to remember it.
Yeah, he had to steal it back. And so,
that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, he absorbed it, and that caused his regeneration.
And, and then that, so she didn't remember it.
Okay. Because that was how I was in my brain kind of justifying it, because she struggled a little bit with Tennant, with the, with the 10th Doctor. In the beginning, but she didn't. At least her struggle seemed more like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, because she's unaware of a regeneration at all.
And plus, that one was really rough. Like he was asleep for days or something.
Yeah, he was.
And then they got attacked by.
Lately, they've decided that you can't do that. Like,
and I'm glad. I'm glad because.
That was kind of a rough episode.
When you get a new Doctor, and at this point, we're obviously used to it. And you're like, ooh, new Doctor, what's he going to be? You're like, okay, he'll be a little wacky, but let's get this guy's personality. Yeah. And then, they sleep through the whole episode.
And that was the Christmas special. It's like, really? You're going to make the Doctor sleep through it? Wow.
But in the same breath, blink.
Well, yeah. Blink, but
that's not bad though because it's already
half a season.
He's already established.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that Jesse will start people on Doctor Who on Blink,
and I know that's not.
And it's such a Doctor light episode.
Yeah.
Some people won't are like, don't do that, but I've found that.
But the scenes, the Doctor scenes in that episode are iconic. I mean, that's where we get our wibbly wobbly.
Yeah. And the Weeping Angels are they're so signature of the new series now.
Yeah, and they're so compelling.
They're like the one monster that has prevailed in the modern series. Everything else is kind of a throwback or a throwaway.
I like that. I forget what they're called, but the ones that you forget if you're not looking at them.
Silence.
Yeah.
Oh, the Silence are pretty good. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Moffat does tend to create images that we remember, like the Empty Child or the Silence, or I'm surprised we haven't seen more of the is it the library, the Shadow monsters.
The Vashta Narada?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donna Noble has been saved.
Okay. Episode 2.
Yeah, maybe we need to jump around because episode 1 took a while.
We're gonna jump around anyway.
Yeah, timey-wimey.
Wibbly wobbly.
What?
It was episode 2 is Into the Dalek.
Into the
yes?
Dalek.
Into the Dalek.
Yeah.
This is one of them that I haven't gone back to, and I don't know if I will real quickly, just because it's another Dalek episode.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Just another Dalek
It's
episode.
like they've... it's the one they shoehorn into every series.
Yeah.
I like it, just not in that. It's not, overall not that great. I like it a little bit because you were talking earlier about the. I think I'm talking about the right one. You talk about the Doctor being a little darker, and then like when he's like, "Oh, I can save you," and then knows that guy is about to die.
Yeah, that was really, really
and that
heavy.
kind of it kind of signals this whole voyage. The whole episode, the whole series is kind of character building. It felt like this, and that's one of the things I love about this series is that it was a character arc. There were character arcs. We got to know the characters this series.
Yeah,
and that was one of those things where it's like we got to see this Doctor really evolve in the first season, and almost come full circle. I don't want to say to a Matt Smith kind of level, but at the end of the series, we kind of see him like realize, no, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot with a box.
I wasn't totally surprised that people reacted like the negative reactions to this Doctor that there've been, and I've talked to like this guy I talked to on Facebook, like he is not a fan of the PCAP Doctor.
What?
Yeah, I know, but what surprises me is that people after the first several episodes didn't realize, okay, yeah, he's brash and it's kind of a dark Doctor, but I don't think people realize that the arc they were going to take him on, and it just seems so obvious to me. I was like, there's no way they're going to keep him quite that edgy the whole time.
Right.
Like they're working towards an arc.
Yeah.
And I kind of seen that early on, and I'm surprised that people didn't really. I don't know if they've since swung around on it, but
it does. It's I hate to go classic all the time, but it's kind of like what they did with the Sixth Doctor. They started the Sixth Doctor super dark, and then I think they were slowly working towards a kinder, gentler Sixth Doctor. And you see that with all of the Doctors. Even the first Doctor, the very first Doctor, you don't like him right away. You're like, man, I mean, like, what is he up to? And he's just kind of a jerk a lot of the time. And then as he gets to know his companions, he softens, and he's the kindly old grandpa, and literally and figuratively. And you see that with all the Doctors. The third Doctor is super, he's super snapping at everybody because he's exiled to Earth. He can't get in his TARDIS and go wherever he wants. So he snaps a lot. Even the fourth Doctor, he doesn't like to have to explain things, and when he's wrong, he doesn't like to have to admit it. Even the fifth Doctor, who's probably like the most even kill Mellow Jello, the dude of the Doctors, is still, he still snaps into his crotchety moments.
For sure.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I could go through every single Doctor and show crotchety moments, and the 12th Doctor just feels like a throwback, and kind of like about time.
Yeah,
for a classic fan.
I agree. Into the Dalek in general, there were some good moments with the Doctor. It's an alright episode.
I kind of like that inner space stuff a little bit. It's always kind of interesting when a series does that whole, you're small and you're going to get injected into this, and you have to get out before you get big again.
Well, when that first, like, I seen that coming, and I was like, oh, they're going to do this old cliche, but then I was like, wait, Doctor Who's done this twice before already, at least twice before already.
Sure.
Before Inner Space ever did it.
Yeah. Well, we even talked about the tiny TARDIS, and which even comes into play later. And I think they flipped it on its ear, though.
That's one of the few ones I did do write up like a mini review of on the website, and I found a clip of, I think it was the fourth Doctor, where they got shrunk down and put into, like, so it's nothing new. And it seemed more so at the beginning of this series, but a lot of, like, and I'm sure they were intentional, a lot of callbacks to the classic series, and just stuff like that would happen. The dinosaur reminded me of the third Doctor story with the...
Oh,
wait, was
sure.
it third?
Yeah, it was third.
With the dinosaurs in, at that time, modern day, wherever they were. London, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I wish I could come up with the title, but I can't.
What's next?
Robot of Sherwood. He doesn't
This is a polarizing one.
This one is...
The Doctor is fun, Clara's fun, Robin's fun, like, most of those main characters are fun, but the plot is so ridiculous.
The plot is ridiculous. Yeah, I love the Doctor and Robin Hood bickering. Like, that was so much fun.
That was great.
If that's all that it was, it would have been fantastic.
Yeah, that scene could have kept going, and I'd
the
been
interactions with Clara, like Clara's really finally getting to have fun with the 12th Doctor. It was a much needed episode. I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm just like, what?
Well, and it's for one, it's like it's a romp, as they would say. So, you're gonna have that. I mean, that's all kind of comes with. There's cheese built in. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But my main issues with it were a couple of action scenes that went cartoonishly over the top. Mm-hmm. The Arrow stuff was kind of fun until it really went Looney Tunes.
Sure.
And then the scene where they're bouncing the robots, lasers, I'm guessing, off the gold plates or whatever.
Yeah.
And it goes so, like, it was, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the one thing that everybody was talking about was the gold arrow.
The golden arrow. That's all it takes is to shoot a golden arrow.
Just shoot it to the side.
It doesn't matter where. It has to touch it. It just has to touch it.
What?
Because it just needs that little tiny bit extra
not touching.
gold.
Can't get mad, not touching. It's like that thing.
Ridiculousness.
But I thought it was a fun. I thought it was a fun episode, and actually, I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to going into it, knowing that it was this Robin Hood.
And I kind of admitted my lackluster appeal for this episode to Axton, and Axton was like, I love that episode. In fact, I want to watch it now. so maybe I need to rewatch it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being too persnickety, but I do think that there's some flaws in that one.
Oh yeah. I'm totally on board.
Not that I don't think there was a single episode I didn't initially enjoy. I think this series was entirely entertaining, even with the ones that I have issues with. And Robots of Sherwood is one of them for sure. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, yeah, we can get into that later if we're going to rate the series. But
because the next one is the best one in my opinion, and in most people's opinion.
Yeah,
it is. Listen.
I
think everybody likes that one.
This is the horror one.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as like, this is the most horror movie style Doctor Who episode I can think of.
But it's always good when it's horror movie style.
I really liked it.
When I love the twist, where it's like, what is it? Isn't it? Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't have to be either one. It could be both. It could be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like such a unique episode because, for one, and some people's complaint was, well, who's the bad guy? What's the villain? Blah blah blah. There really isn't a villain, and I think that's very different. Like, there's always a
novel,
villain. Doctor Who's like the villain. I mean, new series, a villain of the week type show,
and not novel, and for the sake of being novel either. It didn't feel like.
No, it plays on some like interesting concepts.
This primal concept of
fear and
evolution. This. The whole thing stemmed from this idea that things evolve to hide. And what if that was the case, where there was this creature that you just can't see.
Mm-hmm. And the scene where they're in young
Pink, I don't know.
What was his original? Rupert. Young Pink. Rupert Pink's bedroom was legitimately scary to me.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like a legitimate horror movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it accomplishes that kind of tension better than most horror movies do, I think.
Mm-hmm. There's no way that was actually a kid. They came up out of nowhere.
Did you say you rewatched this one?
Oh, yes, yeah. This is one we had to rewatch. It seems like there's that moment at the end where it leaves, where there's like a flash of light, but you don't know if that's from the hallway or what, but it felt like there was like this flash, and so that makes me wonder.
Yeah, I need to rewatch it because I'm really curious about that.
Oh, it's worth it. And it's so good that it's worth
Yeah.
the watch for sure.
Well, and it's one of those things where it's like things are said almost off the cuff, but it's very like just little bits of dialogue that are like, he'll have to be a soldier. He'll never make a good Time Lord. So it tells you that Gallifreyans aren't all Time Lords, and it tells you, it helps explain why you hate soldiers, and it fleshes things out in 3 seconds. Because that wasn't something I was personally aware of, that Gallifreyans aren't. I always thought Gallifreyans and Time Lord, it was
like it's the race.
They've always kind of been vague about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a race of Time Lords. That's a title or a group.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really, it's like, ooh.
Yeah.
And, and the barn, the fact that it was, that the War Doctor had gone back to that barn.
That barn, yeah, that was a nice tie into.
But I always swing back to the 50th anniversary because there's so much in that episode that I'm like, about, So, yeah, but this is definitely probably one of my favorites.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah, I think this
Ray
is one
loves
of my
it.
favorites of favorite Doctor Who episodes of all time, at least off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. And then the next is The Caretaker, which I actually remember nothing
You're
about.
You should jump in one. Time Heist.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's
yeah,
okay.
You're right, I did. Time Heist.
Time Heist.
That was the one
Where they robbed the bank.
where they were, okay.
Or they are attempting to rob this bank.
And there were like 3 or 4 other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with the like previews, how they preview every episode, I didn't think that Time Heist was going to be one that I liked, and then again, I was just astounded how much I actually enjoyed it. Some people are like saying it's the best of the series. I don't know if I'd go that far.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It was good, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was that good. So
That's one I enjoyed it. That's one I ended up watching twice because I think she was gone and I watched it without her, and then I watched it again whenever you came home. The next day you might have went to Allison's.
Yeah, I was mad about that one. I remember. I'm like, don't watch it without me. And then I came home and you would watch it without
I told
me.
you I was going to.
And I thought you were joking because I told you not to.
No, it's Doctor Who. I'm never joking.
I'm completely serious about Doctor Who always.
Plus, I knew I was going to want to watch it again anyway.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it both times. The second time, not quite as much. Maybe just because I what the story is.
Oh yeah.
So it didn't quite hold up as good the second time.
With the twist, yeah.
But there's still a lot of awesome stuff in there. I like at the end where there's the cyborg guy or whatever he is, and the Doctor's like, inferring that he wants to hang out with this guy,
Right.
when Clara's not around and stuff. I thought that was just fun, but it was okay.
I have no opinion.
Okay, what's next?
The Caretaker?
Caretaker.
Another one I didn't think I'd like, and overall, this is one where the plot felt a little weaker, but the character arcs were so awesome. I think the character arcs saved this one because it's just a robot that's just for no apparent reason stuck.
Yeah, what do they call it? Skovox Blitzer or something?
Yeah, this is where the Doctor goes undercover as the groundskeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The robot's totally unimportant. It's just
right.
a reason, and not even really a well-disguised reason, just a reason to have the Doctor there.
Yeah.
I think this is my least favorite of the series of this season. As with all of them, I think the Doctor's excellent. I've enjoyed the Doctor. Mm-hmm. He put up that sign that said "Go away, humans." I thought that bit was great.
that was great. His whole thing where he misunderstood who Clara's love interest was, where he thought she was
rather Matt Smith looking
yeah.
fellow.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I know we thought but that's the Doctor for you. I like the very brief reference to River. We haven't heard Capaldi talk about River, I don't think, except for in this episode. He said something about her in passing. I can't remember what it was, but I remember being like, oh, we gotta see Capaldi and River together. We need to see that. And I don't think...
That could be fun, considering how he reacts to interaction in general, but especially towards the end of the series.
Most of this... A lot of these I would be interested to go back and watch again after having watched the finale, because seeing where the Clara, Danny Pink stuff goes, I'd be more interested. But by the time this episode came around, and this episode is heavy in their relationship, like that's a big part of the plot, I didn't care. I didn't care. Well, that's the main thing that detracts for me this season is I didn't care about the relationship. Not that
Well, that would make a big difference. Yeah.
I mean, it didn't ruin it, but like there were several times where I was like, oh, I don't care. Danny seemed really interesting at first. And this is where he kind of tells off the Doctor, and I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes him more interesting again.
Yeah. But the relationship just seemed so weird, and I had a trouble getting on board. But then after the finale, after the end of, after episode 12, you see where it goes. Not necessarily good places. But then you think about, like, the total arc of their relationship and then compare that to something like Amy Pond and Amy and Rory, where, they have this kind of good relationship and they're flying around, and then you've got this relationship which really wasn't that good of a relationship for either of them.
Yeah, never really.
And it was kind of dramatic.
They gave Clara some faults in this series, which is
she has some massive
kind of
faults.
nice and kind of like,
Yeah, I think that's part of what was off-putting to me at first, but then looking at it like that, it might be more interesting on a rewatch, because you're like, oh, they actually went there and handled it much different.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, too. Like, I got to thinking about it because Jess and I would always be like, we'd be sitting there watching episodes and she'd be lying about something, and we'd both be just like,
she's gonna get hers for lying.
And she's lying, and she's doing so much lying. And the funny thing is that with earlier incarnations of the Doctors, that was the first rule. The Doctor lies. And we let him do it. But why don't we let Clara? Because he's the super wise Time Lord guy, or if you even want to get into some of the ideas of like men and women, because you have this man who's running the show and you have this girl who kind of like follows him around, and that's really reductionist.
I'm here for exposition.
Yeah. And I understand that's really really reducing it down, but it is something to potentially consider, that we don't we get upset when Clara lies, but the Doctor lies his face off.
Oh, yeah.
Literally lies his face off. All the time. So, it's, I don't know, it was interesting to have that realization, be like, well, I don't like it when she lies, but I don't care when the Doctor lies, I expect him to.
It's because the Doctor's great and Claire's not. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion.
I will agree with a common criticism that she's been very inconsistent. Like, she has a lot more personality this season.
I think I like her better now.
Yeah, I do too. Because there's stuff there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes she would still kind of get pushed aside, but she's a companion. It happens. But when she is strong, particularly towards the end, when something like Flatline, or the last two episodes.
Yeah, Darkwater. Yeah.
I think she is good when
she pulled it off. Oh yeah, even in the last episode where she was like,
what's next? Where are we at?
Kill the Moon.
Kill the Moon.
This is on my bottom 3.
Is it?
Yeah.
This one I'm just very neutral on.
I hate what they did with the moon. That's like the point of the story, so I have to not like it, because you can't have the moon give birth to, like, come out of its egg and then give birth to an egg that's the same size as it just was, that it came out of.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It's too far.
100% in agreement on that. That's the problem with it.
Other than that, it wasn't that bad.
Torx agrees. You're right.
This is gonna be the highest Grawlix episode to date.
Oops. Yeah, my idea of going fairly edit free? Not. And it's not even just because of that. No, yeah, it just really falls in the middle of like, it's okay, it's not bad, it's not the most memorable. Interesting concept, but a big part of the issue with the, like, laying a new egg instantly is the fact that it's like a really thin mosquito thin type looking creature up there that instantly like puts a
that's
moon
a
back.
really big egg you got there.
Yeah, where was it hiding it? So
exactly, yeah.
I see your point.
It couldn't have come from anywhere. It was just a little ridiculous.
And why is it so scared of mosquitoes? Or spiders? Or
yeah.
why are spiders so detrimental?
Did anybody have any issues? Like, I didn't have issue with it. The theme, should we kill this essentially baby or not theme?
I didn't have a problem with that, except that she didn't. They ask the world and then don't do what they tell you to do.
What the world says, yeah.
Which was ridiculous.
If the world wants to have an abortion... Wait, what?
Well,
if the world wants to abort the moon.
That's what I was wondering, is if that like really struck you guys at all. We don't have to get into the actual debate, but watching it, I was like, kind of seems like they could be getting at something, but it didn't bother me. I wasn't like, it doesn't necessarily feel preachy. And from what I've heard on other podcasts is the only fans that brought it up as like an issue are American fans, and a lot of fans in other countries don't really feel it's that big of an issue, so apparently that's a very...
and the debate is massive here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there are two big things in this country, and that's one of them. I mean, if you want to polarize people, you talk about marriage equality, and you talk about women's rights / abortion.
Yeah.
So, it's like...
Basically anything that your religion is going to affect your decision. Because that's pretty much what a lot of it is.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I'm scanning synopses. Because I'm trying to remember it. So it couldn't have been that much to me.
I know you didn't seem fond of it, but I kind of liked that they had the girl go with them.
Oh, from the
school?
The school?
Yeah.
The student?
Yeah.
Courtney Woods.
Yeah. I thought that was...
Is there a slice of pizza out there that he could eat? Okay.
Irresponsible maybe, but it was fun.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. They played it out well, where how you might imagine it'd be if the doctor actually took a young teenager with him, where she's like, I'm bored after, being nearly traumatized just moments before.
Yeah.
This is another one that has some interesting references, like the yo-yo that he uses to test the moon's gravity. Tom, it was specifically requested by Capaldi that it be like Tom Baker's yo-yo.
Nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, nerd! Nerd!
Yeah.
Nerd! Love it. I mean, there's a couple other things that are a little bit referential, but I think every episode, I'm looking at these synopses, and every episode has some kind of continuity thing that someone either inferred or was actually there.
And I don't think that's always the case with New Who seasons. I mean, there's nods and stuff, and sometimes not even so subtle. But it seemed like this season, more than a lot of the other ones, were really full.
This could be why we don't like it as much. I'm looking at, again, the synopsis saying the episode was originally written for the 11th Doctor. So it's a departure from...
See, I actually could see it as a 10th Doctor episode more than an 11th, but...
Dinosaurs on a spaceship.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm really...
Kill the moon, yeah, okay.
Trying to think of the 11th Doctor in that story.
See, because I kept seeing the 10th Doctor in that red suit.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
From Waters of Mars.
It did feel a little bit different. I suppose you're right. That
would have been intense. Only Capaldi could have pulled this off.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, if they took it if it still was supposed to play out that same way, where he, refused to help and all this, I'm really trying to, picture how the other doctors would have handled it. Like Matt Smith, that would have been really odd.
That would have been hard for him to... I mean... I think that he was a great doctor, and I think he could have pulled it off because he surprised me a lot of times. But the gravitas that it needed, I think that's more of a...
Yeah, I just have a hard time picturing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is that when Moffat was briefing Harness, the guy who wrote the script, he told him to Hinchcliffe the Grawlix out of it for the first half. Meaning essentially to make it frightening. Yeah, I picked it up. And
nice.
this Hinchcliffe he produced
Philip Hinchcliffe is huge. Yeah.
He produced two from 74 to 77, and was a period that was known for it being frightening. And Moffat called the script intense and emotional.
Interesting.
So,
Okay.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just one of those interesting little.
I think with this. And this ties into your issue with it. I'm surprised we're talking so long about this episode. But I think I like the concept. I think the concept's interesting.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It's obviously something that nobody's gotten around to touching on yet. The moon being this egg. I think the issue is where you want to do this really big concept, but then at the end of the day, like a sitcom, everything's got to be back to status quo by the end. That's where it makes it hard. Like, how do you essentially destroy the moon and then fix it right away?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, you just do.
Yeah.
It's like you try to put it in the real world. Yeah, you try to put it in the real world, and you're like, all the astrophysicists on the planet would be going, we're not gonna kill the moon.
Yeah.
Like, even if it is about to really change, we're not going to hasten that at all. But I mean, obviously, it's an enormous monster in an egg, so Neil deGrasse Tyson is not going to be like, yeah, do whatever, man. You know, I mean, he's not going to be like that because
he's not going to instantaneously turn into Matthew McConaughey.
Right.
Only a Doctor Who could Neil. Yeah. Could that ever happen?
Yeah. But I mean, only in any universe where the moon is a
mosquito.
I mean,
dragon. It was kind of a dragon mosquito.
Yeah.
Creature.
It was a very thin
drag-skeeto
thing. A drag-skeeto. That's a very different.
Yeah.
All right.
Holly hides behind her hand. Oh, my head hurts with the drag-skeeto.
Stop it.
All right.
Mummy on the Orient Express was the next one.
Mummy on the Orient Express.
2 words. Jelly babies.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. You sent me that message. You're stoked.
I was stoked. I was, yeah. If nothing else happened in that episode, I still would have liked it.
I liked that episode. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun.
Yep.
Oh, it was definitely. It was one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. I liked it a lot.
The countdown, the clock.
Yeah, the
countdown.
countdown every
fun.
time.
Like, it could have been ridiculous, but it was a lot of fun. I think. It was cool.
It also doesn't hurt that we were gearing up for a 20s party, a roaring 20s party, so I was watching that going,
oh, wow.
costumes!
And then the Queen cover in the 20s style.
Oh my gosh, that was phenomenal. Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, it was fun, but it was still a little dark too. And I enjoyed that. Him like, you're about to die. Tell me what do you see? What's going on? What's happening?
Yeah. Tell me about your mother.
That was like, if his character arc was kind of sanding the edges off over the season, that was where they took the chisel out a little bit more by the end of it, where, they put him directly with, a bunch of people who are about to die in 60 seconds. How does he act? And then by the end, I think, not that he feels he did it wrong, but I think Clara kind of helped him realize that maybe he doesn't need to be, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but that seems like kind of a turning point in his character arc over the season.
Well, and what episode is that?
8, 9.
Oh, okay, so we're over halfway through.
But yeah, I liked it.
Next one?
Sure.
It's Flatline.
Flatline. Yeah, Flatline.
Tell me, I don't remember.
Street art. I liked it because it had that huge art connection where everything's two-dimensional, everything's flat. Yeah.
I really like Flatline.
Tiny TARDIS. Yeah.
If
Clara as the doctor.
If this wasn't This would almost have to go in my top 3 for the...
Yeah, this one is.
Well, and it was fun, too, because it talked about, like talking about the two-dimensional creatures. And so that gets a little, the science-y element of it, because, I've just been watching Neil deGrasse Tyson become Matthew McConaughey. All right. But some of it I was like, physics, and other parts of it was like, yay, physics. So it was kind of a harkening back to me because the show was designed to make kids like science, so it was kind of like, ooh, science. So
the 2-dimensional stuff was my favorite.
Yeah, it was super cool. I like the effect, and I've seen similar stuff on like YouTube and stuff, but nothing that they've actually used in like a fictional show where they're fine until like the camera angle changes, and then you see they're like just a flat image along the wall and floor.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool.
Ooh, they said this too. That's really interesting. That the miniaturized TARDIS in siege mode. Because we mentioned that when we were watching the episode too. It looks like the Pandorica.
Yeah.
And they reference this too in the synopsis that it's like, hey, it looks kind of like that inescapable prison, which would make sense for something in siege mode. But
yeah, I thought that
they referenced the Time Meddler.
Yeah.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, that's crazy.
The TARDIS exterior was also shrunk to dollhouse size in the series Logopolis. Logopolis, with the Fourth Doctor trapped inside. And the Doctor conversely shrank the interior of the monk's TARDIS in the Time Meddler, thereby trapping the monk outside of it and stranded powerless on 11th century Earth. So yeah, you're seeing, again, a lot of that referential stuff.
It was a Keanu Reeves moment.
What's bad? I've seen both of those, but I don't really remember.
Well, yeah, I don't remember it in Logopolis.
Yeah, well, once you've seen so much of it, it's
and
like...
I like Logopolis. I mean, I like it and I don't because we lose Tom Baker.
What a way for him to go too. I was really surprised. Essentially, he just fell.
Yes,
he fell off a high thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like how you.
But it's been prepared for.
Yes, that's true.
Sorry, Tom Baker, Fourth Doctor, Fifth Doctor joke.
Yes.
Totally lost.
I know. No, actually, I knew what you were talking about.
You watched that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, one of the weirdest, hybrid Doctor moments ever. You want to talk about War Doctor being 8.5. What about 4.5?
Yeah.
How about that? That was crazy.
Yeah. That was something like...
That's a throwback. Okay.
Sorry. No, that was fine.
Next one.
In the Forest of the Night.
Bottom 3.
Yeah, I kind of think I agree.
The Doctor does nothing. The trees do everything.
And I enjoyed that. I just didn't like the end. But other than that, no, I think it was a really interesting idea.
Oh no, sorry. Go ahead. You were saying something.
I just don't like the little magical firefly trees disappearing instantly.
Yeah,
and then the little girl,
in the bush. What was that? What was that? That really bugs me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something?
Well, no, I was just thinking about because you said the Doctor does nothing, the trees do everything. So is it like that Raiders of the Lost Ark?
I'm thinking Ferngully.
No.
No, okay.
But
that theory
it's not a theory, man. If you're talking theory in terms of theory of evolution.
I think it's been disproven, hence theory.
No.
What are we talking about?
The Raiders of the Lost Ark tangent. The Raiders of the Lost Ark would have. It was pointed out on an episode of Big Bang Theory that the Raiders of the Lost Ark. That is the right one, right? I always say Last Crusade, and I get those two screwed up. But that they. It would have all happened the way it happened in that movie, regardless of Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. He had no effect on that movie whatsoever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, at the end, I'm assuming at the end they must have taken the box and done something with it that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Some other stranger would have happened upon it and not known.
Well, the theory is that they would have eventually found it, and they would have eventually opened it, and they would have eventually stored it anyways.
Yeah.
That's the theory, that if anything, Indiana Jones just helps them find it faster.
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically. So.
I wonder, I bet that's kind of the case with a lot of movies that might not be as notable, so people don't pay attention, but I bet that's the case with a lot of things where it's not intentional, it just works out that way that,
Yeah.
kind of not the best writing, I guess.
Yeah, so it's that, I guess that similar idea that, trees would have figured it out.
And they did.
And they did.
Yeah.
Regardless of the doctor saying, wait, yes, no,
Hey, as long as the humans don't burn them down or defoliate them.
Yeah.
Well, I just find, too, it's like, so you can't do anything to them, but somehow we're going to be able to burn their leaves off? Okay.
Yeah, they came out of nowhere.
Really rapidly. But yeah, so it's... See, but I thought of the little things as fae. Like, I thought of them as, like, the fair folks. So I like that element of it, but I love fairies.
The trees did kind of turn into, like, sparklies, like the little, whatever.
I was thinking fairy-like also, but...
But they weren't. They were trees.
Well,
They grew
no,
fast.
it would still kind of work, but it was the entire world, and there were so many of them. Where are they? If it was like,
I didn't expect... Okay, yeah.
Never mind.
No, I see what your point is.
If there were that many of them all over all the time, it's just impossible for me to think that there wouldn't be more crazy little running around, wiggling their fingers, talking to them. You know what I mean?
only one little girl in the whole world can talk to trees. That's a sticker.
Yeah, I didn't mind that the doctor didn't really have anything to do. That nobody had anything to do.
I actually appreciated that he did. I think it's a good thing for him to realize he can't always fix the situation.
Well, that's a good point. I think that kind of plays into his character development.
But that's okay. It still wasn't one of... It wasn't... I didn't think it was that bad, but it wasn't one of my least favorite at all.
I do want to mention, because that one makes me think, the production on this entire series, I think, has been awesome.
It was believable. Yeah, it was believable that suddenly the heart of London is...
It looked great.
Entirely a forest, yeah.
Yeah, it looked great. The effects were good, and the sets were really good throughout almost all the episodes, but this one really, it stood out in terms of how good it looked.
And honestly, watching it, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was still entertaining. It's just, it's kind of like Prometheus for me. That, let's take as many fandoms as we can and cram them into this episode. It's like Prometheus. I really enjoyed Prometheus, and then it was after the movie that I started thinking about it. I'm like,
and it kind of starts to fall apart.
And that's the thing with this episode. It was one of those where it's like, in the moment, I just enjoyed it, and that was fine, and it was entertaining. And then after the fact, I'm like, he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't. Yeah, this would have turned out, I guess.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, and it was like the moon one, which at the time I didn't mind. I was like, what? But a big concept that somehow they had to wrap up real quick at the end.
Sure.
And put everything back to normal because they can't just have an Earth covered in trees all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do a whole series of... I mean, they only get 13 episodes. They can't all be two-parters.
Exactly, yeah. And why that girl in the bush at the end?
Because it has to have a happy ending, because...
It was fine. If
reasons.
Because reasons.
It was a Dr. Witch in the Wardrobe thing. Like, everybody lives, which only Christopher Eccleston could pull off. And only that one time.
Oh, what's the next one?
We are into...
Dark Water.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
Wow, we jumped from 0 to awesome.
Yeah.
Because this is in my top 3 for sure.
Well, it's funny because we haven't really mentioned the fact that Missy's been weaving her way through the whole series.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was wondering why you didn't bring that up, because I know after the end of every episode, that was instantly, we were like, what is that crap?
I think the reason I didn't...
yeah, for the first 3 at least. Yeah.
Watching through it, it bugged me a lot. Because, for me, Moffat doesn't have the best track record of setting some big season-long arc up, or some mystery, and then having it pay off in a way that makes any kind of sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And this time it actually I liked it. It ended up like working, I think, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in retrospect, that's why it didn't bug me. But yeah, you're right. While watching through the season, it drove me nuts.
And besides, anytime you're watching a science type show and it starts to bring religious
That's always that. It was
things
kind of
into it
because it's the magic thing.
right.
Doctor Who will dabble in the magic thing, and there's a
Yeah, but they'll
potion.
always explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is not unless they do this right. That's just not going to be a good thing to go with the show.
Yeah, playing with the afterlife and all that. That was, I guess, another worrisome thing. Ended up working for me.
The way that they brought it all together. It was a Moffat long game that actually panned out.
Which is rare for me. I think.
Yeah.
In
For
my
me, too.
opinion, I mean, that's
Yeah.
Well, and there's so much, especially in these last 2 episodes, where you're like,
Yeah,
like
there
there's
was.
so many.
I like this one better than the last one, just because it's not so over the top. It felt more focused. This one, it was all about, revealing the threat. That interchange between the Doctor and Clara at the very beginning of the episode was intense. Probably the best Clara-Doctor interchange
Oh yeah,
maybe ever.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
At the beginning
with the in the volcano.
the keys and
Yes.
And how at the end he decides to help her anyways. And I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it was brilliant.
And it was kind of that point where you're like, oh yeah, the Doctor's nearly there. He's nearly arrived at his. That
episode, more than most, really took pleasure in messing with the viewer.
Oh yeah.
All through the whole episode, because you've got
Even though you know things, there's Cybermen, and yet there's all these nods throughout the episode, and you're like, wait a minute, I knew this was about Cybermen.
yeah.
It removes organic, you can only see organic matter.
Yeah.
And
Everything
then
about it.
you look at the things in there and you're like,
They're all going to be Cybermen. Oh, they are. Wow.
I'm pounding guns.
They're all Cybermen.
There's Cybermen!
Oh yeah, all the production stills. This has not been a secret. It's like the second thing we saw of Capaldi.
You know what's funny? I totally forgot that the Cybermen were supposed to be in it. I should have known.
Well, and Missy too. I mean, we've seen Missy and the Cybermen before we saw stills for Deep Breath almost.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't they kind of red herringed Missy too, didn't they? Because
Oh yeah,
we're getting into massive spoiler territory. If you're,
Well,
if you've been listening already, you know that we're talking about the episode.
Yeah, we're talking about the series finale now, so
We're
gonna spoil it,
2-parters. So
Yeah.
we can't talk about it without saying who she is, because
Yeah. Well, and it's so brilliant because they red herringed her, didn't they? Because they made her look so much like a Time Lord, didn't they?
the Ronnie, they purposely, the only female rebel Time Lord that we know of, the Ronnie, she looks like the Ronnie, so you could conceivably see that, and even in the way that she approaches things, she's dealing with robots throughout the first part of the series, so it's you could easily misconstrue it as being the Ronnie, but of course there are people out there who figured out who she was.
I guess they didn't know, but
guessed that. I think they just kind of did the wordplay.
Yeah.
Being
there's only so
spot
much.
on.
Yeah. I know, and I had obviously there's a lot of people taking guesses, and I'd heard several people like, oh, I bet it's the Master, but most of the time you're like, could be, nah, probably not.
When you had heard a lot of people say that the Master was coming back this series, and so I don't know. And being a huge Master fan, I was just like, yeah, I don't care. I'll take my Master any which way.
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
You could have phrased that differently.
Wait, what?
You could have phrased that differently.
Speaking of female Master,
What?
Any which way.
I
My
like.
husband, folks. Y'all can't have him. He's all mine.
At the end of this episode, we got. I'm just staying right on track.
Good call.
Well done.
The end of this episode, they do the reveal that Missy's the Master, and so they don't really touch on her actually being the Master a lot till the next episode. But I like that they didn't play on the sex change at all. Like they weren't like, oh, you're a woman now. What happened? Blah blah blah. You know, it's just like
they didn't
you
ever
know,
do it,
I'm
yeah.
not- I'm-
Yeah.
It's
It
just like,
wasn't
oh, because I
about-
thought maybe she was the master.
I like that she gave the doctor the big
Oh yeah.
kiss at the when they were first introduced to each other or whatever.
Yep. The master kissed
fun.
the doctor.
So would have. I believe that. That's in character for the master.
Oh yeah. Well, no, yeah. The master does always seem to have like a weird, not necessarily in a weird way, but a weird attraction,
Yeah,
love-hate thing.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
yeah.
And they really hit that with Sims, so it's
Oh,
nice
yeah,
that at least carried over from The Sims. I felt like this is a pretty good transition from The Sims master to the Michelle Gomez master.
And you know the way they explained the afterlife type thing and them downloading people when they died.
Yeah, using TARDIS technology and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Overall, it's kind of God. That would take so long. What a boring existence it would be to spend forever collecting everybody. But it totally made me think of Riverworld, and then that made me happy because I like Riverworld.
So this is starting to bleed into Death
Yeah,
in
I guess
Heaven.
this is going to.
I loved I loved Darkwater because it had everything that made me want to watch Death in Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some things in Death in Heaven that I didn't love as much as Darkwater. But Darkwater as its own episode, one of my top 3 for sure.
Yeah, I was super excited after Darkwater. Super excited for the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Death in Heaven, I was very conflicted.
Yeah.
I like it. I think
So much. So many things. All of the things.
all of them.
Like holy
all of
cow. Yeah.
They're all there. Just
The
different things.
sorry, I'm just seeing this
Wow.
great little snippet about because this season was plagued with leaks.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah.
Oh,
so many
yes.
leaks.
Good point.
There were so
Yeah,
many
I
leaks
mentioned
beforehand.
that.
And towards the end of the episode, Missy reveals her true identity as the Master to a horrified Doctor. And the climax was removed. This climax was removed from all preview copies of the episode, so nobody got it. And it says that the actors involved recorded their recorded their lines in ADR to hide this revelation from spectators.
Yeah.
So they would have like
public
gone back in and
shoot.
dubbed it. And so as someone who doesn't understand like the recording process, that I had to go and look and be like, what? Well, what's ADR? So they dubbed it in afterwards. So people who are watching filming, because it's outside on a street.
Is that after direct recording?
Sure.
I'm just guessing.
Sounds about
I
Yeah.
totally just guessed that. So.
AD might or D might be dialogue.
ADR post sync automated dialogue replacement.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Ooh.
So
I was
they
way off.
essentially they came in and
All 3 of those
There were
wrong.
AEDs and Rs.
I
no. But it's the same concept. You had
yeah,
the
so
idea.
they came back in and did that, which I think is rad because I hate spoilers with every fiber of my being. So
would have been bummed if that were truly spoiled for me.
yeah.
Yeah, when they came out with the thing that not only the episodes that were sent to get translated, but then scripts also were missing or had been leaked. We were like, we're just gonna stay off the internet until the season's
Yeah,
over. I mean, we didn't, but
you guys didn't check out any of the
No,
leaked stuff.
no.
Yeah, me either.
No.
I didn't want to know.
Like, there was a moment of temptation, but then I'm like, why do it?
When they weren't
Yeah.
done, you know?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. That's all I got.
so this, Death in Heaven.
There's a lot to chew on in this.
Yes. I'm going to start with Cybermen because I'm a big Cyberman fan.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that, like the Cybermen, it felt like they stripped the personality of the Cybermen completely. And they were just this tool for the Master. And granted, that's how the Master would use them. But they didn't talk about Talos. They didn't talk about the Cyberman agenda. They didn't talk about any of that. Like, the Cybermen, it could have been any kind of robot, really. The Master could have been putting them into any kind of android shell, and it didn't have to be the Cybermen. And now the Cybermen can literally take over a body via water?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the Dalek problem. It's like we started with one Dalek, now we've got, I mean, it's score creep for Daleks, and it's the same thing with Cybermen now. It's like, well, one Cyberman's not good enough. Now, like the Cybermen as ghosts isn't good enough because the Daleks can just wipe them out. And now, you can upgrade the Daleks in Nightmare in Silver, but at the end of the day, now we need the weather.
Make it
to
rain.
soup up the Daleks or the Cybermen, and I mean, no, come on.
It bothered me a lot that they kept calling it spores, and I'm like, just call it nanotechnology.
Yeah.
Like what it basically is. Just use the word.
Okay, that would have
explained it so much better.
That would have fixed. Yeah, that probably would have fixed it.
Like
for
the
me.
same difference.
That makes more sense. Yes.
From a science fiction thing, feels much better to call it nanotechnology.
Yeah.
Well, I assume that's what it was.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to call it that, and I'm just like, just do it.
Why not? This is practically in sci-fi vernacular now. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would have actually fixed things for me, other than to say that all you need is water.
Yeah.
All you need is magic water, and now Cybermen can take over your body. Well, you're not safe at all, are you?
And like I said, I like how they, saved everybody's personalities or downloaded them or whatever. That's fine. But still, for like all of human history, those bodies aren't even there anymore. They can't take over a pile of dirt, Yeah. So I think it was a little ridiculous to try and go that far with it. But
well, and every companion and person that's died in the last
That's a
whatever.
whole thing.
I know. Yeah, we get there, and it's like, oh,
That's a whole thing. Before that, before this episode, were messaging about the Cybermen and stuff a little bit, and isn't originally, I didn't come to this conclusion, but I'd heard somewhere somebody mention they didn't like how the Cybermen were basically just drones. And then this episode aired, and that is exactly what they are, to the point where before they're turned on, they just kind of autopilot.
They have been the tool of somebody else since probably the other Doctors. The last time we saw the Cybermen have any kind of agenda of their own, maybe Closing Time, where we had Craig and the 11th Doctor their little madcap adventure with Stormageddon. I mean, like, that's the last time and they've kind of been a joke since the Dalek Cybermen face-off.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that was the last time that the Cybermen were taken seriously at all in the modern stories. Which is, Cybermen are kind of a tough sell. They always have been. But there are stories that are good, and there are stories where they're just pawns.
Yeah.
And this is what we got. We got the Cybermen return, and they're just pawns.
On one hand, I really enjoyed the zombie take on it. But on the other hand, it's one of those things where you can picture the writer like, how can I make these guys scary? What if they're like zombies?
Well, and you take the faceplate off of Danny Pink, and you see... spoiler. Danny dies at the beginning of Darkwater. We totally jumped that one.
Over weird details.
Weird, super important details, yeah.
So this mosquito creature in the moon...
But like that was an interesting take. I mean, that was an interesting image because we don't ever see them take the helmet off after the fact.
No, and I think that was like more so than like the zombie rising, the Return of the Living Dead like imagery. Yeah. I think that sold the horror of Cybermen better because you get that that familiar. It's the body horror, and also like then there's a familiar face and. But it's not right. Like, it's, like, obviously there's pain.
Yeah, he's twisted.
So, I thought that was the Cybermen, not as a Cyberman, but the Cyberman concept done well was with Danny.
I didn't like any of the Cybermen.
Except they had to show that paper in his hand 40 times, just so you know that's Danny Pink. I get it. You don't need to show him holding the paper every time he steps in the frame. Yeah,
I didn't like really much of any of the Cybermen stuff because, again, depending on how long people have been dead, there's barely a body to take over. And if you have the body, then just and you want them to not have emotions, give them some artificial personality. Why keep a personality to put in there without a body that you're going to already chop the personality up. It doesn't make any sense. None of it made any sense. Ugh.
And why give him the option to delete himself?
Yeah, all of it was...
I guess that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
The afterlife ball was more terrifying to me than any of that stuff. Being trapped forever in a ball of like, meh, this is like a high-rise afterlife. That's so boring and horrible. I would hate that more than living in a world with zombie Daleks. I mean, not Daleks, excuse me, zombies.
Yeah, I know. I did that earlier too.
Okay, jumping from that, there's
Sideways.
other stuff. I was gonna,
sideways. Yeah.
No, I had something in mind that piggybacked that, but I can't remember now.
No, I'm not a fan of how they treat the Cybermen at all. So I don't disagree at all with that.
Oh, that whole concept. One thing that I found interesting so they played with the idea of like, this is what afterlife is, but then it's like, oh no, that's a science fiction thing. Don't worry, we're not going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kind of do go there with, since Missy/Master has a TARDIS or some type of TARDIS device and has been collecting people since whoever
we
knows.
didn't get to see the Master's TARDIS at all.
Which
but
is
he's clearly been using it.
Mm-hmm.
She. Missy has been using it.
It makes
clearly.
it difficult, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
No. I'm using things. I don't think I'm supposed to say them. But so they kind of set it up to where throughout history, humans' concept of the afterlife has simply been Missy collecting us.
yeah.
Until they kind of do that little extra cheesiness at the very end with Danny and the little boy and all that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes,
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting that they went there. They're like, the afterlife is actually the Master,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When that was the thing, that was, if I have a problem with this finale, it's all those over the top moments. And there's so many of them. It's like, one of my favorite parts of this whole thing is when Unit shows up and Kate.
Mm-hmm.
When Kate shows up, she owns it like a boss, and so does Osgood. She comes in and rocks the bow tie, rocks the chucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that was really starting off awesome, and then all of a sudden the Doctor is given emergency powers as the President of the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
That really does. It really did go over the top, but it amused me because it plays into the Doctor just can't get away from it. He'll go to Gallifrey in the classic series, have these things, and eventually they're like, well, you're the president. And he's like, oh, and he runs away from being the president.
Sure.
He can't get away from them electing him president wherever he's at. So I like that idea.
That's true, yeah.
But it really is over the top that,
Yeah. And then when he gets onto the plane, there's a giant painting of the brig.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, we brought Dad along.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. Except for the setup.
Yeah. That part was fine. That was, and the cyber, the one thing, probably my favorite part, well, there's probably two favorite parts. Seeing the Cybermen on the steps of St. Petersburg.
Mm-hmm.
Or St. Peter's.
Yeah, St. Peter's Cathedral.
Yes,
Yeah.
St. Peter's. Seeing that was a cool image. And seeing the Cybermen attack the plane. Those are probably, if they're, those were two pretty cool images. Otherwise,
didn't one of them say there's a Cyberman on the wing?
Yes, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, yes,
They had to. I'm so glad they did.
So, that was all good, and then, yeah. Then he jumps out of a plane, and then he, and all
That's
the
over
things,
the top.
Yeah, all the things that happened before that, with Missy and Oz.
That was
good.
I think that was good. That was Missy being evil.
I just
but I'm really disappointed that they took out Oscar.
Yeah, with the afterlife technology, that's what made this whole thing tough to swallow anything, to believe that anything was truly final, was the fact that they had erased death earlier. Mm-hmm. They had kind of erased death.
That's a good point.
And yet didn't. Everybody that died still pretty much died.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it made it hard to believe that anyone was truly finally executed.
And they even play on that with Kate getting tossed out of the airplane.
Yeah.
Why not Oscar? Why can't she be saved?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and there was even that element when Oscar dies. You're like, wait, what? And then when the Cyberman shoots Missy, it's like, what? We just got her. We just got this fantastic villain. We just found out who she was an hour ago, and now
Yeah.
That wasn't just any Cyberman, though.
yeah, that's true. That was like a.
Should we go to the most over-the-top moment, the most controversial over-the-top moment?
Yeah.
Are we ready for that already? There's so many over-the-top.
Cyberbrig?
Cyberbrig, yeah, the Brigadier. And we're gonna bring back the Brigadier who never got a salute from the 12th from any doctor.
I like the concept, but maybe I don't know, maybe I'm being overly sensitive to it, but it felt ghoulish to me.
And you're not alone. Ghoulish. I think a lot of people didn't like that. Like, that was the line.
Especially where they have his daughter playing. I mean, at least she wasn't.
She has done so well, too.
Actively in the scene with Capaldi and having an exchange. That'd have been really creepy. Because that's his real life daughter, yeah?
No. She just plays the Brig's daughter.
I thought she was.
I don't think so.
Oh.
We'd have to look that up, but I think I looked this up before, and she's not related.
Okay. I don't know why I would think that then.
Well, she looks like family. I mean,
Yeah, she looks like
they picked a brilliant actress for it.
Slightly less ghoulish now then, I guess. I don't know why I was thinking that. Still, though.
There's too many weird coincidences with the Doctor Who cast.
It's true.
One doctor's daughter is married to the other doctor and played his daughter in an episode.
As a clone.
No,
Weird stuff.
Oh,
the doctor's daughter.
Wow, she's Vanessa Redgrave's niece. Vanessa Redgrave, because her name is Gemma Redgrave.
Oh, okay.
I
don't know where I got that.
It could be just the familiar, the resemblance is uncanny.
Okay, that might be.
Just brilliantly played that part.
Just bought into the show too well. Like, no, that's really his daughter.
It's a legacy part.
Yeah.
It's the only way we could do it.
Oh, man. But still, it is weird. I thought it was just strange.
Well, and clearly the Master Missy is not gone.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's disappeared into her afterlife or her TARDIS or something.
Kind of another interesting thing is that they don't even bother with how did the Master come back this time. And that's kind of
that's kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of good, except that he was trapped in Gallifrey. That's kind of as close to an explanation as
I guess they did touch on it a little bit.
That he escaped to Gallifrey, at the end of the world or end of time.
Mm-hmm.
And then he must have escaped, and so, and I know where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you don't get to. And so, I keep wondering if we're going to get some of these people back, because, again, nothing seemed final in this. And the most over the top, I think if there is a most over the top moment, it's leading into our Christmas special, in that we punctuate the point that this series finale is so over the top. With Santa Claus.
Oh, I know.
Santa Claus is going to bring back Osgood. Santa Claus is going to bring...
Santa Claus is going to bring back Gallifrey.
We're going to get CGI.
He's going to bring back,
CGI Brigadier. We're going
to get the progeny of Pink. That's good, So, Clara's going to get a baby from Santa Claus somehow. Danny's baby.
Well, see, the baby thing, the baby thing could still work out even if they don't bring Danny back or anything like that, because she could be pregnant.
Yeah, I think we'll find that, and I think that'll come to fruition.
The Santa thing, I didn't mind. I mean, it's ridiculous. I like that it's Nick Frost.
Yeah. I don't think anybody has had a problem with that.
My only issue with the Santa thing is it comes right after the scene closes.
Yeah,
we get a couple
super
credit
intense
screens.
scenes too.
Yeah, that's the thing. And those I think were my favorite. Like, those are super emotional scenes. That
brought it back down to Earth,
even
though it was in outer space.
Yeah. But the scene where Capaldi goes to, of course they're both lying to each other at the table, and Capaldi goes to find Gallifrey.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's not there. And the music, and he's just banging on that was really good. I think it was my favorite scene.
Well, and punctuated by the point that they're flashing back. They're showing this at the same time, that they're basically parting ways between the Doctor and Clara.
Mm-hmm.
Which come to find out that obviously we're going to get at least one more episode with Clara. And they're super vague about whether or not
There's
she's returning.
rumors. Yeah, there's rumors as to... Because I thought
she was leaving.
Me
I
too.
thought it was a done deal. I thought everybody knew this, but it was never confirmed. It still isn't.
Which is weird, yeah. There's rumors. I think today I seen there's rumors that she might actually be coming back, but that was not any confirmed thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, because BBC never did confirm. Someone said they
Was
did,
it
but you
contract
never...
negotiations? Is that what's happening?
Could be.
And so she conceivably could. And I'd be fine with that. In fact, I kind of hope that she isn't done, depending on how they handle the Christmas special. So, I don't know.
I think it'd be an alright way to send her off if she didn't come back, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a downer on this episode, on the last episode, but then, they've got the Christmas special to kind of smooth that over.
Sure.
But maybe that's them toying with us, or maybe that's them unsure of whether or not she was going to come back, the way they set it up, because most of the season seems to be building towards her leaving.
Right.
But, yeah, so, I don't know.
Well, and she might wind up being pregnant and then can't really...
She better be pregnant, because how are they going to have all this ridiculousness set up with...
Awesome Pink?
Awesome Pink.
Yeah, and then he's gone. If she's not pregnant, then it doesn't make any sense, and then I don't like it.
There's a lot of, I think at the beginning of Dark Water, where Danny gets hit by the car, right?
Yeah.
And she's on the phone. She's got all these little notes
Yeah.
set up.
yeah.
And I haven't like freeze framed it or anything, but I'm really curious to check them out. One of them said miniature Clara. I'm really curious as to what all the little notes say.
Well, we made it. We made it through season 8.
We did.
Whoop.
Whoop.
Fadoop.
We read what you tell us to, but first, you have to exercise your voice. Cast your vote on grawlix-podcast.com and tell us what poll list pick we're reading next. Then, listen to the next episode to hear what we thought of your recommendation. Don't see your favorite comic on the list? That's okay, you can write it in. If your candidate isn't chosen, just wait. It may be the next time. Your vote stays in place until it wins. It's fun, it's interactive, it's educational, it's true democracy in action. This is Melanie, and life's a Grawlix. Now so am I.
My name is Holly. Alright, Grawlix.
This is Randy. I get older, they stay the same Grawlix.
I'm gonna go straight Jesse Ventura and be like, I don't have time to Grawlix.
Thank you for listening to the Grawlix Podcast. The Grawlix Podcast is a production of Electronic Media Collective and Vorpal Arrow Studios. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. To hear more, visit grawlix-podcast.com, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/grawlixpodcast, and like us on Twitter, twitter.com/grawlixpodcast.
But,
Hey, we found ourselves at the juice joint.
yeah. Man.
It was a good time, had by all.